Chapter 83 The Two Women Meet. Inside a grilled fish restaurant, Mo Simon looked at King Nu sitting opposite her, then at Yan Bingshuan beside her, and then at Chen Mobai between the two women. She couldn't understand how he could be so daring. Here, this is a black sturgeon that I specially had someone bring from my hometown. It tastes even better than the carp we had last time. Because Chen Mobai had been on Kingguang Island for a while and had no time to return to the water mansion, he could only choose this fish with the best taste from the seafood market on the island. It was said that the taste was comparable to that of the azure blood carp, but it did not have the effect of enhancing spiritual roots after eating it. Chen Mobai had inquired and found out that even in the heavenly river realm, the famous dish, azure blood carp, was not something that ordinary cultivators could afford. Back then, the fish fry that Liu Lingpei bought were worth 1 spirit stone each. After painstakingly feeding and raising them to become first-grade low-quality fish, they were sold in the market for 10 spirit stones each. If you were to order this dish at Tianquanlu restaurant in Nangxi Market, it would cost 50 spirit stones. The reason it's so expensive is that the dish cooked by the chef of Tianquanlu can greatly increase the speed of Kai cultivation for cultivators practicing water attribute techniques within a week. Many people assumed it was due to the chef's exceptional skills, but Chen Mobai knew that the main reason was the superior quality of the azure blood carp itself. The cultivators of the heavenly river realm didn't realize that the azure blood carp could enhance water spiritual roots. They simply considered it a precious ingredient. However, thinking about it this way, Chen Mobai felt heartbroken. The azure blood carp he ate at the water mansion, even at cost price, already cost several hundred spirit stones. But then he thought again that raising the blood carp was a unique skill of the Liu family, who were cultivators in the Yun kingdom. If he went to Nangxi market to sell fish, he might be ambushed and killed by the Liu family the next day. From this perspective, eating it yourself is actually the best choice. This black sturgeon is also a specialty of Yunmeng's. Its meat is tender and delicious. Chen Mobai tried it in his wooden house and found that even just boiling it was enough for him to finish the fish soup. Today, the grilled fish restaurant owner's family recipe, combined with the deliciousness of Tianhe realm, was so good that even Yan Bingshuan, who always pays attention to her appearance, couldn't help but eat it with her chopsticks until her mouth was full of oil. Chen Mobai was a little slow in picking up his chopsticks, and he noticed that his 3 female classmates had only left him some side dishes and fish bones. Fortunately, he had considered that King Nu loved to eat it, so he brought back 2 pieces this time. When the boss served the second piece, he didn't hold back anymore. He grabbed the tenderest piece with his chopsticks and took a bite under the cold, wide-eyed gazes of the 3 women. Delicious. After finishing the grilled fish, the 3 women began to use their cleansing spells to tidy themselves up, showing a bit of modesty. This restaurant is good. I can come and try it again next time. Yan Bingshuan thought it was because of the boss's cooking skills, but King Nu immediately explained that the ingredients Chen Mobai brought were good. Mo Simon glanced at the 2 girls, then suddenly kicked Chen Mobai. The latter looked at her, puzzled. The class monitor immediately gestured for him to speak quickly and end the gathering. She was afraid that if they stayed any longer, something unexpected might happen. Just then, Chen Mobai was also planning to rush back to the heavenly river realm to continue honing his combat skills, so he agreed to meet her again next time. By the way, this is a first-grade high-quality, Kai-replenishing spiritual water that I have been refining recently. Before they parted ways, King Nu suddenly took out 12 glass tubes tied together from her bag. The colorless and transparent spiritual water inside rippled, making Chen Mobai beam with joy. You've worked hard. Without this, my cultivation progress has slowed down a lot recently. After making money in Yunmeng's, Chen Mobai bought 10 portions of the main ingredients for refining Kai-replenishing spiritual water at the Liu family's Siki Pavilion branch on Kingguang Island. He also bought some used spirit stones, returned to Diyuan Star, and handed them over to King Nu. He also bought some talismans online as a reserve. The same main and auxiliary ingredients, if used to refine a first-grade high-quality Kai-replenishing spiritual water, can only be used to blend 10 tubes at most. However, the market price is much higher, with the flagship store of the Immortal sect pricing it at 1,000 merit points per tube. After Chen Mobai reached the 7th level of Kai refining, consuming mid-grade first-tier chi-replenishing spiritual water only increased his cultivation efficiency by 2 to 3 times, so he naturally looked down on it. Previously, King Nu lacked experience in refining it, resulting in a success rate of only 10%. However, with his ample supply of raw materials and the addition of spiritual essence, he recently finally overcame that hurdle. My success rate in refining medicine is now about 70% to 80%. If I have enough medicinal materials, I should be able to refine 100 tubes for you before I go to Jumeng Academy. That should be enough for you to cultivate to the 9th level of Kai refining. As King Nu spoke, she pushed the 12 tubes of first-grade high-quality, Kai-replenishing spiritual water on the table in front of Chen Mobai, her eyes full of smiles. Perfect timing, I just bought 10 more portions of medicinal herbs online. Come home with me to get them. Class monitor, Yan Bingxuan, will be going now. Under Mo Simmons' wide, incredulous gaze, Chen Mobai greeted them and then happily took King Nu home. How could this person be so daring? After Chen Mobai left, Mo Simmons suddenly couldn't help but scream. She had never seen such an unromantic man. Let's go too, or we'll miss the bus. Yan Bingxuan stood up calmly, revealing no emotion whatsoever. Aren't you angry at all? I really am. If I could beat him, I would definitely teach him a lesson today. Mo Simmons was deeply affected by the shock, breathing rapidly as she followed Yan Bingxuan, shouting and cursing as she went. What's wrong? You don't actually think we're dating, do you? I've already said we're just classmates. Yan Bingxuan sighed as she listened to her best friend's incessant chatter and interrupted her. Even if they're just classmates, how could she invite another girl to dinner when she's treating you? Even if that person is her girlfriend, what does she mean by that? Is she showing off? Yan Bingxuan felt that Mo Simmons' idea was wrong. It was just a meal, and it would be better and more lively if she invited her friends over to eat together. Besides, Chen Mobai had also said that King Nu was just a close friend of his. What's wrong with calling another girl? You're a girl too. Mo Simmons was shocked by Yan Bingxuan's thought process. She thought about Chen Mobai again and felt that she was the most abnormal one among them. It can only be said that people with similar ideas are indeed attracted to each other. Once Mo Simmons understood this, she immediately shut up. You two shouldn't call me for any future activities. If I go on a few more team-building events with you guys, my values and beliefs will probably be shattered and rebuilt. However, that King Nu seemed to be a normal person just like him. Was she deliberately showing off just now in order to attract Chen Mobai's attention? What a pity, such a perfect heavenly spiritual root. Why did she choose him? End of this chapter. Chapter 84. Divine Wood Sects Talisman-Making Experience. After delivering the medicinal herbs to the rented alchemy room with King Nu, Chen Mobai placed an order online, buying out the 200 or so new talismans that the Wood Spirit Talisman shop had recently stocked. The shopkeeper replied with a smiley face and sent the order via same-city express delivery. Unfortunately, I missed out on buying the protective pulse pill at the Immortal sect flagship store. It was probably because my home network was slow. It was a second slower, and the pills sold out instantly. Chen Mobai could only feel regret, since he had third-level access and could try to snag a bargain every month, so he was bound to succeed eventually. Moreover, if the last attempt to snag the spirit-boosting powder was successful, and the pulse-protecting pill is also successful this time, it could still be exposed if someone with ulterior motives notices it. That evening, as usual, he returned to Qingguang Island. Although the spiritual energy level of his wooden house was only at the first-grade high level, which was not as good as that of the water mansion, Chen Mobai had recently developed a habit of consciously working hard to cultivate in the heavenly river realm. Perhaps it was because every time he refined the spiritual energy of the heavenly river realm, he, as a cultivator from the earthly element star, always felt like he was getting something for free. This gave him a lot of motivation to cultivate. After consuming a tube of first-grade high-quality chi-replenishing spiritual water concocted by King Nu, Chen Mobai once again felt the rapid increase in efficiency. As he circulated the 5 elements technique, strands of spiritual energy were absorbed by him, and after undergoing the great circulation, they were integrated into the gradually forming spiritual energy vortex in his danshan. After finishing his meditation, Chen Mobai looked at the sky outside. It was completely dark. I checked the time on my phone. It was exactly 4 in the morning. He simply began to assemble the talisman he would use in magical battles. Of all the first-tier high-grade talismans he currently possesses, the only one he can use in battle is the all grass and trees are soldiers talisman. According to the description, this talisman is most effective in a forest environment, mainly used to trap and suppress people. The duel will take place at Danju Academy, where, although there is some greenery, most of the terrain consists of Danxia landforms. Chen Mobai only considered it for a moment before abandoning the talisman. On the Immortal Sect network, he also searched for various talisman shops, but talismans for combat were extremely rare, and they all had many restrictions to prevent ignorant cultivators from using them and causing serious trouble. They're all too mild. Chen Mobai shook his head, unable to find a single combat talisman on the Immortal Sect network that satisfied him. For some reason, he remembered the Crimson Flame Sword talisman that Marquis Kai had used. Although it required some preparation to activate, its power was incredibly strong and its speed was extremely fast. Even the Black Plague bird, which was famous for its flight, could not dodge it. After all, when it comes to combat, the cultivators of the Heavenly River realm are more skilled, while the magical arts and techniques for improving people's livelihoods are only moderately developed. Chen Mobai has a high regard for the cultivators of this world when it comes to combat. He remembered the book Shenmu Sect's talisman-making experience that Lu Shu had given him in Nangxi Market, and immediately took it out from the bottom of his bag. I opened the book and looked through the table of contents, and sure enough, I found the introduction to the Crimson Flame Sword Talisman. Crimson Flame Sword Talisman, a first-tier superior talisman. The talisman maker can solidify the Crimson Flame Sword light they have cultivated into the talisman paper. It can seal up to 3 sword lights, which can be unleashed all at once or used one by one. Unfortunately, this manual only contains an introduction to this talisman, without a detailed method for its preparation. However, it was precisely because of this that Chen Mobai learned that the Crimson Flame Sword Talisman actually had 3 levels. The one used by Marquis Kai last time was the most ordinary one, which only sealed 1 crimson sword light. If all 3 sword lights were released at the same time, and the user's spiritual sense was sufficient, they could even arrange them into a small sword formation when activating the talisman, thus raising its power to another level. In other words, although this Crimson Flame Sword Talisman is only a first-grade high-quality item, it can unleash power comparable to a second-grade low-quality item once all the conditions are met. It might not be any worse than the Yiwood Divine Thunder Talisman in Chen Mobai's hand. How about we choose this one? After reading the introduction, Chen Mobai felt that if he possessed the Crimson Flame 3 Swords Talisman, even if he couldn't get first place in the duel, he should still be able to get into the top 10. Tomorrow, I'll go to the talisman shop of the Shenmu sect on the island and see if they sell this talisman. After listing the Crimson Flame 3 Swords Talisman as his top candidate, Chen Mobai then began to select 2 mid-grade first-tier talismans. He was very familiar with the Green Arrow Talisman and the Wooden Armor Talisman. They were arguably the 2 talismans he used most often and was most proficient with. For now, he would use these 2. In the end, only 4 low-grade first-tier talismans remained. Chen Mobai then assembled a set using wooden shield talismans, wooden prison talismans, entanglement talismans, and antidote talismans. Since the battles between the immortal sects were generally limited to a few points, these talismans were perfect for dealing with those Kai refining level 6 opponents who were just there to make up the numbers. However, the wooden shield talisman and the wooden armor talisman have somewhat overlapping functions, and Chen Mobai has also mastered the water element shield, so it feels like he has a lot of defensive options. But then he thought about it again and realized that being in an invincible position wasn't wrong, so he decided to leave it like this for the time being. After roughly setting up a set of talismans for use in combat, Chen Mobai decided to go find the black armored turtle to practice on his own tomorrow. Seeing that it was still dark outside, Chen Mobai continued reading the Shenmu sect's talisman-making experience in his hand. He wondered if he could use the talismans from the Heavenly River realm to further optimize his system. This manual was distributed to new disciples by the Shenmu sect. It records the 48 most common talismans in the Shenmu sect, but only 5 of them have actual crafting methods. These are respectively Resurrection Talisman, Regeneration Talisman, Rebirth Talisman, New Life Talisman, and Resurrection Talisman. As you can tell from the name, it is a complete system of talismans used to cure diseases and save lives. The Resurrection Talisman is a degraded version of the Revival Talisman. It can be used to restore spiritual power, and the amount restored depends on the cultivation level. However, it does not have the powerful effect of the Revival Talisman in removing all negative effects. The Regeneration Talisman is quite powerful. It can regenerate severed fingers, and even severed limbs like arms can be reattached if this talisman is used within a short period of time. The Regeneration Talisman is the best-selling talisman in the low-end market by the Divine Wood sect, which can enhance a man's yang energy. The Rebirth Talisman allows cultivators whose bodies are beginning to age to rediscover the vigorous energy of youth, and it sells quite well. The most powerful Resurrection Talisman is a life-saving talisman. No matter how severe the injury, applying one can keep you alive for up to 3 days. Of course, if you've been beheaded, even 10 Resurrection Talismans won't help. It's generally used when making final arrangements for your affairs. After reading this book on talisman-making techniques, Chen Mobai began to understand the Shenmu sect's methods a little better. It seems that the reason this major sect in the eastern wilderness recruits rogue cultivators is specifically for making talismans. It is said that once the sect contribution points earned from crafting talismans accumulate to 10,000, they can be exchanged for foundation establishment pills. End of this chapter. Chapter 85 died. Although he understood the Divine Wood sect's motives for recruiting rogue cultivators, Chen Mobai still longed for the foundation establishment pill. This thing is said to give cultivators at the 9th level of Kai refining at least a 30% chance of successfully establishing their foundation, making it a veritable elixir for ascension. If he could obtain a foundation establishment pill, even if it contained excessive levels of toxicity, Chen Mobai would be willing to give it a try. After all, once he reached the foundation establishment stage, he had ample time to resolve the poison. Unfortunately, even though the Divine Wood sect has the most lenient conditions for recruiting rogue cultivators among the 7 major sects of the eastern wilderness, it still requires a 10-year cycle. Moreover, it mainly recruits rogue cultivators who possess the ability to make talismans. After all, once such Kai refining cultivators are taken under the sect, they can immediately generate revenue for the sect with just a little training. Moreover, in order to obtain enough sect contribution points to exchange for foundation establishment pills, these people basically give their all when accepting tasks and crafting talismans. Cultivators who grow up in this environment and successfully establish their foundations generally achieve great things in the end. Chen Mobai thought about it and realized that if he wanted to infiltrate the group, he needed to quickly improve his talisman-making skills. It just so happens that the 5 methods of making talismans recorded in this book, the Divine Wood sect's talisman-making experience, are the ones that the Divine Wood sect tests when recruiting rogue cultivators each year. He decided that after the entrance exam, he would start placing talisman making as the second priority after cultivation. By then, it was already daylight. Chen Mobai packed his equipment, and for the first time independently, rented a boat to hunt monsters. He was fully prepared, covered in talismans, and chose the black armored turtle from Yunmeng Marsh, known for its defensive capabilities but not its offensive power. Therefore, this solo operation went smoothly without any unexpected incidents, and he easily killed a lone turtle. During the journey, they encountered the boss siblings, who had also rented a boat. Chen Mobai greeted them across the lake, and then each of them took their hunting spoils and went off in 2 different directions back to Qingguang Island. These 2 siblings seem to be wary of me, Chen Mobai muttered to himself on his boat. The wariness between people in the heavenly river realm was even greater than he had imagined. He and the boss siblings had developed a bond through several battles together, but even after meeting in the Cloud Dream Marsh, they still wouldn't let each other get close. Chen Mobai could only be thankful that he hadn't encountered Kai Hu and his junior brother Zai. Otherwise, it would have been quite awkward. After safely returning to Qingguang Island, Chen Mobai sold the black-armored tortoise he had hunted to a merchant at the dock who specialized in buying and selling these monsters. Because his talismans were mainly used for binding and sealing, the most valuable part of the monster, the tortoise shell, was well preserved, and he sold it for 2 spirit stones. After being processed by a weapon refiner, the shells of these black-armored turtles become defensive magical artifacts. Chen Mobai kept 1 turtle leg for himself. He also brought some seasonings with him this time, intending to cook this highly nutritious ingredient himself. However, just as he was carrying the cut-off turtle leg back to the wooden house, a beam of light flew from the distant water like an arrow and crashed into a cart loaded with monster meat not far away. In an instant, flesh and blood flew everywhere. Chen Mobai quickly activated his water control technique, and a wave of water formed a hemispherical water wall in front of him, blocking all the flesh and blood flying towards him. Which little brat blew up all the goods that I worked so hard to collect this morning? A cultivator at the 8th level of Kai refining, disregarding his bloodied body, rushed in anger towards the spiritual light, smashed it open with a punch, pulled out the person inside, and was about to give him a good beating. Quickly report to the island lord, a large army of demonic beasts is charging this way. The person inside the spiritual light was barely clinging to life. As he spoke these words, he coughed up blood repeatedly, and the powerful talisman he held in his hand turned to ashes. "How, it's him." Chen Mobai was greatly surprised to see that the person was Ba Jiang. At that moment, the 2 Shenmu sect disciples who were watching the show on the dock changed their expressions drastically after hearing Ba Jiang's words. One of them pushed away the butcher who was about to throw a punch, while the other patted a resurrection talisman with heartache in his eyes. "Send a message to Uncle Zheng, the most urgent one." After casting the talisman and saving Ba Jiang's life, the Shenmu sect disciple turned to instruct his junior brother who had suppressed the butcher. The latter nodded, took out a talisman from his robes that was probably used for internal communication within the Shenmu sect, infused it with spiritual power, and then released it into the sky. Whoosh! A beam of fire, like a pillar of heaven, burst forth in an instant, shooting straight into the sky. Anyone on Qingguang Island outside the houses could see it clearly. What happened? Less than a minute after the talisman was cast, a white-haired old man with a strong spiritual aura flew down from the highest point of Qingguang Island. His eyes were like lightning. He stood in midair, and his powerful aura made Chen Mobai realize that this person was a Foundation establishment cultivator. A rogue cultivator reported that a large army of demonic beasts is heading towards Qingguang Island. The cultivators from the Shenmu sect stationed at the dock were also very capable. They conveyed the key points to Uncle Zheng in a single sentence. Upon hearing this, the white-haired old man immediately flew to a higher altitude. Chen Mobai then clearly saw him shoot 12 talismans in all directions. About 8 or 9 breaths later, 7 talismans flew back and landed in his palm. Everyone retreat to the island, immediately activate the Great Formation, and at the same time send a message to the disciples outside, telling them not to return to the island and to find a way to survive on their own. This Uncle Zheng had been stationed in Yunmengs for many years and had a plan for this situation. After confirming the existence of the demon army by using the demon-finding talisman, he immediately began to issue orders and mobilize his disciples. Yes, Uncle Zheng, the Shenmu sect disciple, who was still holding Bajiang, immediately put down the now useless messenger and, together with his junior brother, retrieved some valuable spirit boats moored on the shore, and then activated the large array node here. As for the other independent cultivators on the shore, needless to say, upon hearing the Foundation establishment cultivator speak, they knew the situation was true and immediately scattered, abandoning their goods and rushing to the market to buy talismans, magical artifacts, and pills for combat. The cultivators who had just left the island were lucky. The Shenmu sect disciples only activated the Grand Formation after they landed. As for the rest who have already gone far away, all they can do is pray for good fortune. Even the disciples of the Divine Tree sect on the outlying island, judging from the words of this Foundation establishment cultivator, could only resign themselves to fate and hope that they would not encounter the army of demonic beasts and escape this calamity. Upon seeing the dock suddenly empty, Chen Mobai immediately ran to Ba Jiang, who was barely clinging to life, and carried him on his back, as if he had exhausted all his spiritual power to activate the life-saving talisman. Ba Jiang was deeply moved to see that Chen Mobai had not run away under these circumstances, but instead saved him. "Where is your sister?" Chen Mobai, however, recalled that he had clearly seen the brother and sister not long ago. "Dead." Two simple words made Chen Mobai stop in his tracks. He felt the danger of the heavenly river realm once again. End of this chapter. Chapter 86, Summoning Order. After carrying Bajong back to his rented wooden house, Chen Mobai prepared to say goodbye and leave. "Brother Chen, I am deeply grateful and will not thank you enough. I will prepare a generous gift for you after I recover." Bajong lay weakly on the wooden bed and spoke with a bitter smile. "After all, we've known each other for a while, and I'd feel bad if I just stood by and watched someone die." Chen Mobai simply shook his head, then asked about the situation of the demon beasts, but Ba Jiang didn't know much either. After hunting down the black-armored turtle, he and his sister took a detour to hunt another kind of monster, but before they could succeed, they ran into a huge flock of black plague birds. Before the second-tier bird king could even make a move, nearly 1,000 black plague birds spewed out a dense rain of arrows, covering all possible escape routes. Ba Jiang had a second-tier defensive talisman that saved his life, but his sister wasn't so lucky. She was riddled with holes and died in the marsh. Do the monsters of Yunmeng Marsh frequently attack the island? Chen Mobai was a complete outsider, and his understanding of the situation here was limited to what he had only known about this place for a short period of time. Although Ba Jiang was also a newcomer, he was from a native cultivation family in the eastern wilderness and had grown up listening to the legends of Yunmengs, so he knew some of the details. It is said that there are fourth-order demonic beasts in the deepest part of Yunmeng Marsh, but 100 years ago, they were suppressed by the Hunyuan ancestor of the Five-Element sect and several fellow cultivators. After the passing of the primordial ancestor 50 years ago, the seal became increasingly weak. Powerful demonic beasts would often break out of the seal, leading their respective clans to wreak havoc. If it weren't for the Nujiang true man of the Five-Element sect's water veins constantly guarding the Fengyuwu and the seal, Yunmengs would probably have long since become a paradise for demonic beasts. Even so, the 7 major sects of the eastern wilderness still organize their disciples to hunt monsters in Yunmeng Marsh every now and then. Otherwise, if the Fengyuwu is attacked from both inside and outside the town, the legendary fourth-order monster might actually come out. In the last 30 years, the demon beast army has become smarter. Before the major sects of the eastern wilderness launch the demon hunting conference, they will attack the various market islands pinned down in Yunmeng Marsh in advance. Usually, the most brutal battle will take place at this time. After hearing these words, Chen Mobai fell silent and then asked a question. Can Qingguang Island withstand it? The Divine Wood sect is, after all, one of the 7 major sects of the eastern wilderness, with extraordinary foundations. It is highly likely that they can withstand the attack, but many people may die. Ba Jiang gave a remark that made Chen Mobai sigh. In most cases, it's possible that it won't be able to stop it. At this point, we, as independent cultivators, have no choice but to place our hopes on the Divine Wood sect, and they will issue a summons to have us independent cultivators help guard the island. Oh, is this summons mandatory? That depends on the true colors of the Shenmu sect. But even if it's not mandatory, we rogue cultivators still have to help defend the island. Once the island falls, the disciples of the Shenmu sect might be able to leave via teleportation array, but we rogue cultivators will definitely be abandoned as cannon fodder. Ba Jiang revealed the key point with a bitter expression, and Chen Mobai suddenly realized, yes, if there were a teleportation array, the Shenmu sect could have preserved its remaining forces and retreated back to its main base. However, he quickly realized what was happening. As one of the best-run markets in Yunmengs under the Shenmu sect, Qingguang Island Market earns at least tens of thousands of spirit stones a month from the rent of the cave dwellings and wooden houses on the island, plus the various shops and business commissions. If they were to withdraw at this moment and allow the demonic beasts to wreak havoc and destroy everything. Even a core formation cultivator would feel immense heartache. Therefore, even if the Shenmu sect were to retreat using the teleportation array, it would only be under the circumstances of running out of ammunition and food, and having no way to defend itself. In this way, the independent cultivators would certainly hope that the Divine Wood sect would not retreat, and would also help them guard the island. Chen Mobai, however, was wondering whether he should leave immediately. He has a tortoise shell, so he can easily withdraw from the situation. However, the attack on the island by the demonic beasts was a rare experience, since he already had a safe way out, and the Shenmu sect was definitely prioritizing the defense of the island. He might as well observe the situation and use it to hone his combat skills. Brother Ba, you should focus on recovering from your injuries. I'll go find Brother Kaihu and see if he's on the island. After saying this, Chen Mobai got up and left. He had accompanied Kaihu on several missions to hunt demonic beasts, and he knew the address of this Shenmu sect disciple's residence. It was located in the highest point of the island's center, in the cave with the best spiritual veins, even better than the water mansion, a second-tier high-grade cave. Oh, it's you. Marquis Kai was lucky. His junior brother Zai happened to have something come up today, so he didn't leave the island and thus escaped a disaster. However, Chen Mobai was even luckier. He not only left the island but also met up with the Ba siblings. However, he chose the right direction and returned safely. After learning about the situation of the Ba siblings from him, Marquis Kai couldn't help but sigh. He then took out a resurrection talisman and asked Chen Mobai to deliver it to Ba Jiang. Brother Kai, if these demonic beasts attack the island, how should we, the rogue cultivators, deal with this? After Chen Mobai took the talisman, he asked about these matters. If the Shenmu sect is too strict with rogue cultivators, he plans to run away. Well, I just came from Uncle Zheng's place. The summons order is about to be issued, so I'll tell you in advance. Our Shenmu sect will pay spirit stones to hire all the rogue cultivators on the island. Those in the late stage of Kai refining will receive 5 spirit stones a day. Those in the middle stage of Kai refining will receive 2 spirit stones a day. And those in the early stage of Kai refining will receive 1 spirit stone a day. As long as everyone is willing to die for us, the spirit stones will be paid out on the same day. Furthermore, if they perform exceptionally well in the battle to defend the island, our Shenmu sect may make an exception and recruit them into our sect after the battle. After Kaihu finished speaking, Chen Mobai couldn't help but admire the courage of this foundation establishment cultivator surnamed Zheng. Even without spirit stones, the island's independent cultivators would still help the Divine Wood sect defend the island for their own lives, given the mutual dependence of the sects. However, with this generous recruitment notice, almost 99% of the independent cultivators will fight to the death to serve. Even Chen Mobai himself was tempted. Junior brother Chen, you are so young and you have already reached the 7th level of Kai refining. I have high hopes that you can join my Shenmu sect and we can become true fellow disciples. After offering a few words of encouragement, Kaihu said he was going to set up defenses at the array flags on the east side of Qingguang Island. After waiting for his 3 fellow disciples to form a small team, he also hurriedly left. Chen Mobai took his resurrection talisman and returned to the wooden house in Bajiang. After giving the talisman to him, he also mentioned the summons from the Divine Wood sect. If the spirit stones are distributed on the same day, even the most suspicious rogue cultivators will have their doubts dispelled. This Uncle Master Zheng Deming truly lives up to his reputation as one of the most likely cultivators in the Divine Wood sect to form a core. He is extremely decisive, and being a rogue cultivator himself, understands our mindset. After listening, Ba Jiang sighed and said something. As expected, some of the independent cultivators were already packing their bags and leaving. After all, the target of the demon beast army was definitely Qingguang Island. As long as they left the island and scattered to hide in various parts of Yunmeng Marsh, as long as they didn't run into the demon beast army head-on, their chances of survival were not small. But once this summons was issued, almost all the independent cultivators chose to stay. End of this chapter. Chapter 87 Helmet. Chen Mobai decided to stay. The Heavenly River Realm is his greatest opportunity, and there is no doubt that he will spend a long time in this world in the future. In this world full of battles and dangers, he certainly cannot keep hiding forever. This time, guarding Qinguang Island will allow him to observe the level of large-scale combat in this world most directly. Moreover, with the Shenmu sect protecting them, such opportunities are rare. Even if the Divine Tree sect eventually couldn't hold out and had to retreat via the teleportation array, it would definitely cause a huge commotion that couldn't be concealed. He only needs 8 seconds to return to the city. He can dig a hole under his wooden hut, and if the island really does collapse, he can hide for 8 seconds without any problem. After leaving Bajiang, Chen Mobai first went to the market street on the island, hoping to purchase some magical artifacts and talismans that could increase his combat power. However, he arrived too late. Almost everything had already been snapped up. What remains are either defective products or damaged magical artifacts with greatly reduced power. As for pills, they were truly sold out. Even herbs, as long as they could be eaten raw and had the effect of restoring spiritual power or healing injuries, were bought up by cultivators who were willing to spend the money. Needless to say, the shops run by the Shenmu sect were closed after the island was sealed off by the higher authorities. All supplies were put under Zhang Deming's control, with some distributed to the sect disciples on the island. On the other hand, at the street stalls, there were quite a few rogue cultivators looking to make a fortune, bringing out items they wouldn't normally dare to sell, and asking for exorbitant prices that were 2 or 3 times higher than usual. Chen Mobai took a fancy to a spirit mirror artifact that combined offense and defense, but the stall owner asked for 80 spirit stones, which made him shake his head and leave. He wandered around and realized he was too poor to go back to his cabin, only to find someone already waiting at the door. "Manager Wang, what are you doing standing at the door?" Chen Mobai greeted the man, who was the manager of the Shenmu sect who had rented him the wooden house. The latter seemed to have just arrived and was hesitating whether to come later. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Chen Mobai return. "Fellow Taoist Chen, this is a summons issued by my Shenmu sect. You are a cultivator in the late stage of Kai refining, so I came here to inform you. I hope you can step in to defend the Spirit Island at this critical moment and lend a helping hand to my sect." Manager Wang handed a summons stamped with the seal of the Shenmu sect to Chen Mobai. Since the latter had already decided to stay, he naturally wouldn't refuse. "No problem, but I wonder where we can collect these spirit stones." The conditions for recruiting rogue cultivators to guard the island, as stated in the summons, were exactly the same as those revealed by Kai Hu. As long as one accepted the summons from the Divine Wood sect, the reward spirit stones for the day would be distributed before each battle. Such conditions demonstrate a great deal of sincerity. "If you wish, fellow Taoist, you will belong to my team, and I will distribute the spirit stones to you." Manager Wang's words made Chen Mobai nod in agreement, and he immediately signed the summons. "According to Uncle Zheng's talisman, the first batch of demon beasts will arrive in about 2 hours. I still need to go to the other dozen or so rogue cultivators to issue summons. Please ask fellow Taoist Chen to gather here in 1 hour." After listening, Chen Mobai nodded again, and Manager Wang was very generous, paying 5 spirit stones directly. After all, the Divine Wood sect's island protecting formation has been activated, so even if these rogue cultivators wanted to escape, they couldn't. And they weren't afraid that Chen Mobai would go back on his word after taking the spirit stones. But what Manager Wang didn't know was that right after he left, Chen Mobai immediately used the turtle treasure to return to Earth Origin Star. Of course, he wasn't running away. He was going to procure supplies for the battle. At his doorstep, Chen Mobai glanced at the more than 200 talismans sent by the Wood Spirit Talisman Shop, then stuffed them into his backpack. Afterward, Chen Mobai made a phone call to Wu Wan. While there is inflation on Qinguang Island, the price of magical artifacts on Diyuan Star has remained stable, although magical artifacts used in combat are unusually expensive. Unfortunately, the crafting of powerful magical artifacts requires prior application and approval from the relevant departments of the immortal sects. Once approved, the buyer must register the artifact, and each use must be reported. All these factors have caused the price of combat magical artifacts to skyrocket. However, the crafting of defensive magical artifacts only requires registration, so their value has remained stable. Chen Mobai felt that in battle, it was best to prioritize safety and survival. Although he had mastered the water element shield and possessed the wooden shield talisman and wooden armor talisman, he still felt that purchasing another defensive magic weapon would allow him to participate in the island defense battle with peace of mind. The budget for a defensive magic artifact is around 80,000 merit points. After clearly stating his requirements in one sentence, Wu Wan, as a first-level appraiser, actually had quite a few resources at his disposal, including 3 magical artifacts that met his requirements. Because of the time constraint, Chen Mobai did not take the bus this time, but instead took a taxi directly to Wu Jai Gold Shop. I only have this one on hand right now. If I need the other 2, I'll have to get them from other blessed lands. How long will it take? One is from the same city, and it should arrive tomorrow. The other is to be transferred from Yu Cave Heaven. If we don't hesitate to use merit points, it can be done in as little as 3 days. Within the immortal sects, shipping within the same city is free, but shipping from other blessed lands and grotto heavens is quite expensive. However, Chen Mobai certainly wouldn't care about that at this moment. It's just that time is of the essence. So he looked at the defensive artifact that Wu Wan had taken out of his safe. This is a helmet all gold, and it looks very cool. It's a mid-grade first-tier magic weapon. Wearing it can defend against spells that directly attack the Sea of Consciousness. When I was crafting it, I also included a spiritual energy shield restriction. If you fill it with spiritual energy beforehand, you can release it once without using your own spiritual energy. Wu Wan seemed a little reluctant to part with the helmet as he introduced it. Oh, I never expected that it was actually made by Master Wu himself. Although every appraiser harbors a desire to become a weapon refiner, Wu Wan's words still surprised Chen Mobai. Originally, I crafted this helmet to help enhance my spiritual sense during my foundation establishment process, since I only managed to acquire the pulse protection pill and not the spirit enhancement powder. Unfortunately, my foundation was still insufficient, and I failed to establish my foundation. It will take me several more years to reach the Kai refining stage. If you need it, I'll sell it to you at a discount. Although Wu Wan spoke these words in a light and casual tone, Chen Mobai could still hear the sigh in his voice. For ordinary cultivators of immortal sects like them, the difficulty of foundation establishment is comparable to ascending to heaven. What price range is Master Wu planning to sell it for? This magical artifact is made from refined gold, so the material cost alone is extraordinary. We've been friends for a long time, so let's give it 100,000 merits. That's too expensive. I only have a budget of 80,000 merits. During this period, Chen Mobai purchased talismans and supplementary medicines to replenish Kai. Of the 160,000 merit points that Chan Si had originally transferred to him, only half remained. This time, in order to participate in the island defense battle, he did not intend to save any merit points, and the remaining 80,000 merit points were his entire fortune. End of this chapter. Chapter 88, 5 Transformation Umbrellas. This is really the lowest price. You know the price of gold. Why don't you take a look at these 2 other defensive magic artifacts? They are the work of 2 weapon refiners I know, and the price will be a bit cheaper. Wu Wan produced 2 printed documents, which were his appraisal certificates, clearly showing the images and functions of the 2 ritual implements. Chen Mobai glanced at it. One was a long-sleeved robe, and the other was an umbrella. The long-sleeved robe offers better defense than a helmet, but it lacks the ability to enhance spiritual awareness. Its price is 89,000 merit points. The wooden umbrella, on the other hand, is the cheapest, costing only 75,000 merit points. Its defensive capabilities are actually quite high, but it places high demands on the user, requiring the umbrella to be opened for each defensive maneuver. However, once the umbrella is opened, it will continuously draw spiritual energy from the user, so it should generally be closed when not in use. When Chen Mobai saw this, he felt it was perfect for him. Besides the reasonable price, it was also because he was a skilled cultivator, and the artifact's design matched the style of the heavenly river realm. Wu Wan's golden helmet was simply too eye-catching. Is this umbrella from the same city, or from Yu Cave Heaven. From the same city. Let's take this one. Where is it? We'll take a taxi there, we'll be there soon. Chen Mobai's eager attitude surprised Wu Wan, but since he was paying for the ride, Wu Wan naturally had no objections. It is the work of a student from Danju Academy. The umbrella handle and frame are made of first-tier Paulownia wood, and the umbrella surface is covered with first-tier talisman paper. It's more accurate to call it a talisman than a magic artifact. There are 5 defensive talismans drawn on the umbrella surface. Theoretically, it can defend against spells of the 5 elements. However, after my verification, it can only withstand attacks from the late stage of Kai refining at most. While waiting for their ride, the two discussed the advantages and disadvantages of the magical artifact. Although Wu Wan didn't sell his magic artifact, he could still make a profit from the wooden umbrella since it was listed in his online store, so he was quite happy. This student has quite a lot of ideas. The design of this 5 elements umbrella is excellent, aiming to transform all the 5 elements magic in the world. It's just a pity that it's broad but not deep. It can resist the 5 elements magic cast by cultivators below the 7th level of Kai refining, but once that limit is exceeded, the defensive talisman will immediately become unbalanced. But this wooden umbrella has another hidden feature. After the defensive talisman fails, you can find a talisman maker to redraw the talisman you want and turn it into an offensive weapon. Of course, I won't write this on the certificate. If the law enforcement department comes knocking on my door, I'll definitely say that you, the buyer, illegally modified it without my consent. Wu Wan's guidance broadened Chen Mobai's horizons, and he was filled with admiration for the design of the 5 transformations umbrella. This magical artifact can be considered half talisman, and its usage can be changed by replacing the umbrella surface and the talismans drawn on it. Chen Mobai certainly wouldn't have come up with such an ingenious idea without someone's guidance. After spending 260 merit points to take a taxi to Danju Academy, the student who had received Wu Wan's notification was already waiting at the gate. They introduced themselves to each other. Luan Jingsheng, a sophomore. Chen Mobai is an ordinary person. Luan Jingsheng was a young man with thick eyebrows and big eyes. He didn't talk much, and when he took out the wooden umbrella talisman, he seemed a little reluctant to part with it. After the two became friends, Chen Mobai immediately transferred the merit to Wu Wan's shop in front of him. Then he took the wooden umbrella and left. As for how Wu Wan and Luan Jingsheng would handle the accounts afterward, that was none of his business. He only had one request: to accumulate points. For this, he paid an extra 750 points as a tax. Even if the Immortal Sects Tax Bureau audits the accounts later, he was the one who paid the money, and the procedures were all legitimate and there were no problems. Even if Wu Wan went to jail for tax issues, he would still be innocent. Chen Mobai took a taxi back home again, and then teleported to Qingguang Island, just 1 hour before the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. Luan Jingsheng even provided a long cloth bag for the wooden umbrella and said that if there were any problems in the future, Chen Mobai could contact him for repairs. After their first meeting, Chen Mobai felt that this person was quite nice and that he could consider long-term cooperation. He put the wooden umbrella into the cloth bag, which had a rope at the opening that could be tied to his belt. Chen Mobai tied his needle case to his left wrist, slung a satchel full of more than 200 talismans over his shoulder, and arrived fully armed at Steward Wang's office hall, the place where he had rented the wooden house before, a place he knew well. When he arrived, it was already quite late, and everyone was waiting for him. "I'm sorry, I went to buy some magical artifacts and talismans from some friends, which took up some time." Chen Mobai immediately apologized. Seeing that he was fully armed, the rogue cultivators who were initially a little impatient calmed down. After all, the better equipped their companion was, the safer they would be. "Fellow Taoist Chen, our team of 28 cultivators is responsible for guarding one of the array flag nodes of the Heavenly Wood Divine Light Array. Here is the basic information." Manager Wang handed a small booklet to Chen Mobai, then patted a blue cloth bag at his waist, and a flying boat floating in midair appeared in front of everyone. "It's a storage bag." A female cultivator recognized the origin of the blue cloth bag at Steward Wang's waist and was greatly surprised. Keep in mind that even the smallest storage bag costs 100 spirit stones. But Manager Wang's storage bag can hold a 20-meter-long flying boat. Its value is probably equivalent to a Foundation establishment pill. It's a storage bag that the sect uses specifically for allocating large quantities of goods. Uncle Zheng gave me one, and the daily spirit stone supply for all the fellow cultivators is also kept in here. Manager Wang patted the storage bag at his waist with a smile, and his words made several rogue cultivators present show interest. However, besides Manager Wang, who was at the 9th level of Kai refining, there were 4 other Shenmue sect disciples at the late stage of Kai refining in this group. They were able to completely control the situation, and no one dared to have any crooked thoughts, but envy is still unavoidable. Chen Mobai calculated that this group of 28 cultivators, apart from 5 disciples of the Divine Wood sect, were all rogue cultivators. Including himself, there were 4 late-stage Kai refining cultivators, 7 mid-stage Kai refining cultivators, and 12 early-stage Kai refining cultivators. The cost of hiring them is 46 spirit stones per day. Generally, when monsters attack an island, it takes at least a month to hold out. That means there are at least 1,000 spirit stones in my storage bag. With such wealth, it's no wonder that independent cultivators are envious. Under Steward Wang's command, the group boarded the flying boat. With the help of spirit stones, they arrived at the location of the array flags they needed to protect in just a few words. It is a cliff on the shore, with a 10-meter diameter piece of land enclosed by bluestone, and a bare tree planted in the middle. After reading the booklet, Chen Mobai knew that this was the flag. The Heavenly Wood Divine Light Array is the most famous array of the Divine Wood sect. It uses trees as array flags. The sect's main camp, Giant Wood Ridge, is protected by thousands of spiritual trees, so even a nascent soul ancestor would not dare to easily enter. On this Azure Light Island, a total of 36 spirit trees were transplanted from Giant Wood Ridge by the Divine Wood sect. At their peak, these trees could reach the 3rd rank. It is precisely for this reason that the disciples of the Shenmue sect and the independent cultivators have the confidence to defend the island. They are here. End of this chapter. Chapter 89, Heavenly Wood Divine Light. There was no need for Steward Wang to remind them. Everyone looked up and saw at the horizon, on the line where the water met the sky, as if specks of ink had been spilled, instantly spreading outwards in patches, becoming mottled clusters of dark clouds. It's a black plague bird. Chen Mobai immediately recognized this monster as the one that caused Kai Hu and himself to flee in panic, and was also the culprit behind the death of Ba Jiang's sister. Sure enough, these beasts arrived the fastest. A disciple of the Divine Tree sect with a stern expression came to the bare tree and inserted a specially made talisman. Everyone, Heavenly Wood Divine Light will sweep around first, but in order to avoid the monsters figuring out the pattern and to guard against the attacks of second-tier monsters, as long as we can resist, Heavenly Wood Divine Light will not be activated again. Manager Wang quickly explained the upcoming tactics, and Chen Mobai understood the reason behind it. It was written in the booklet I gave him before. Since there is only one Foundation establishment cultivator on the island for the time being, while there are definitely more than one second-tier demonic beast, the Heavenly Wood Divine Light Array on Qingguang Island, which can severely injure second-tier demonic beasts, is the last trump card. The 36 Spirit Tree Array flag stored 36 rays of Heavenly Wood Divine Light. Once activated, if a monster is hit head-on, even a second-tier monster will lose half its life, and some weaker ones will even be blasted into dust. But after those 36 Heavenly Wood Divine Lights were used up, those second-tier demonic beasts no longer had any fear and would rush onto Qingguang Island to slaughter indiscriminately. However, this Heavenly Wood Divine Light is not irreversible. The talisman that the Divine Wood sect disciple just implanted into the Spirit Tree Array flag serves this purpose. It allows the Spirit Tree that has activated Heavenly Wood Divine Light to rapidly absorb the Earth's spiritual energy within 2 hours and recharge itself with another Heavenly Wood Divine Light. Therefore, the battle to protect Qingguang Island lies in whether or not the heavenly wood divine light can be used to deter those second-tier demonic beasts while resisting the large-scale invasion of the island by hordes of demonic beasts. However, the Shenmu sect also has many capable people who understand the principle of making the real appear illusory and the illusory appear real. As soon as thousands of black plague birds flew over Qingguang Island, 4 beams of heavenly wood divine light shot into the sky. One of them was emitted by the spirit tree array flag they were protecting. Rumble! Chen Mobai only felt a surge of powerful spiritual energy, enough to crush him, suddenly emerge from the depths of the cliff he was standing on, and then it was completely drained by the spiritual tree in front of him that surrounded his team. It was like a bolt from the blue. The clear, bright beam of light, like a sword, cleaved through the void of the sky. The swarming black plague birds were vaporized, and thousands of demonic beasts turned into plumes of dark red blood mist, staining half the sky crimson. Violent, a sharp, angry screech rang out, and Chen Mobai felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. He activated the nourishing mind and forging spirit technique, and his mind immediately returned to clarity. However, the cultivators around him who had not yet mastered divine sense were scattered and staggering. Some of the lower-level cultivators even had blood trickling from their mouths as they collapsed on the edge of the cliff. It's a second-tier bird king, and it actually has 3 heads. Manager Wang glanced at the sky, his face showing a mixture of surprise and delight. The power of heavenly wood divine light was indeed extraordinary. It directly blasted one of the second-tier black plague bird kings into serious injury, causing it to fall onto the island. Another second-tier bird had half of its wing evaporated. Only the fastest bird survived the wide-range sweep of heavenly wood divine light. Just now, it was this heavily injured second-tier bird king that fell onto the island. Under Zhang Deming's attack, it desperately unleashed its last sonic divine power, which greatly affected Chen Mobai and the others who were not far away. However, it was ultimately severely injured. Under the flying sword of Zhang Deming, who was in the late stage of foundation establishment, this second-tier bird king was finally killed tragically. But the death of this king bird triggered a frenzy among a flock of black-spotted birds. After the 4 beams of heavenly wood divine light swept through, hundreds of black plague birds screamed, spewing out gusts of wind that turned into blades and arrows, launching a suicidal attack towards the west of Azure Light Island, the place where the bird king had fallen. Having prepared in advance, Chen Mobai and his companions immediately displayed their unique abilities, some using magical artifacts, some activating talismans, and others directly attacking with spells. With a whoosh sound, Chen Mobai opened the 5 transformations umbrella hanging at his waist, releasing his spiritual power so that the talisman could absorb it. A hazy blue mist covered the umbrella, blocking the wind blades and wind arrows falling from the sky. Although these black plague birds are numerous, their quality is not very high. Chen Mobai even had the strength to protect the 2 Kai refining cultivators beside him, who were still reeling from the Bird King's final sonic attack. After blocking the first wave of attacks, the black plague bird began to use its sharp beak and wings to attack those guarding the spirit tree. This is where the difference between disciples of major sects and rogue cultivators becomes apparent. Disciples of the divine would sect do their best to protect those with lower cultivation levels around them, while most rogue cultivators only care about themselves, and those like Chen Mobai are few and far between. Manager Wang usually seemed all smiles, but when he actually got into a fight, he was ruthless. He wielded a crimson flying sword, slashing back and forth as he chopped the 5 black plague birds that charged toward him into more than a dozen pieces. The other Shenmu sect disciples also followed their own methods, raising their uniform black armor shields, and after establishing a defensive foothold, throwing out talismans one after another. Lightning, wind, frost, and flames erupted in an instant, turning the 12 black plague birds into corpses. Chen Mobai, however, was cautious and did not use his full strength. Facing the 2 black plague birds rushing towards him, he threw out 2 entangling talismans, which instantly generated 2 branches that stopped the 2 beasts, which were moving too fast to turn around. Then, with a flick of his left sleeve, 2 golden rays shot out, piercing bloody holes in the foreheads of the two black plague birds. Meanwhile, the Kai refining cultivators who had been affected by the sound waves regained their senses. Some swallowed pills, while others used secret techniques to fight the black plague birds that rushed towards them. Since the 4 heavenly wood divine lights had swept away most of the black plague birds, and most of the remaining birds were restrained by the other 2 bird kings and did not rush to attack, the remaining black plague birds lost their minds and became disorganized due to the killing of their leader. Chen Mobai and his team quickly dealt with the nearly 100 black plague birds that had rushed into their area. After spitting out 2 more volleys of wind blades and arrows while still circling outside the island, the remaining black plague birds ultimately did not dare to charge onto the island again. They landed on a barren reef about 10 kilometers west of Kingguang Island, blocking one direction. After the battle ended, Chen Mobai looked at the bird corpses lying on the cliff, the black feathers and fragments of broken wings floating on the water below the cliff, and then at the 2 Kai refining cultivators who had lost arms and were wailing in pain. He fell silent. End of this chapter. Chapter 90. Monster Attack on the Island. A disciple of the Shenmu sect immediately took out a regeneration talisman he had prepared in advance from his storage bag, and reattached the arms of the 2 Kai refining cultivators. It was our first time fighting, so everyone was still a bit inexperienced, but it's great that no one died. Manager Wang indicated that the 2 injured Kai refining cultivators could go back and rest first, and could return if they wanted to continue fighting later, and the spirit stones would still be issued. One of them immediately shook his head, indicating that he no longer wanted to participate in the war. The other hesitated for a moment, feeling that he hadn't been prepared this time, and that he wouldn't get hurt again if the situation were the same next time, so he decided to stay. Manager Wang was also very kind to the one who left, not only having one of his junior brothers fly a boat to take him back, but also giving him 2 regeneration talismans to heal his wounds. The cultivator who stayed behind received 5 regeneration talismans, and even an extra spirit stone as compensation. Both of them are at the 3rd level of Kai refining, which is considered a low level of cultivation. Manager Wang's act of spending a fortune to buy horse bones eased the somewhat somber atmosphere caused by the injury. Through this battle, I found that everyone's teamwork is not very good, so let's split into teams. Manager Wang, whose real name is Wang Yuanwu, demonstrated great strength in the battle just now, and everyone generally trusts him. Therefore, they all agreed to his plan to divide the remaining 27 people into 5 teams. Each Shenmu sect disciple was appointed as a team leader, and the remaining members formed teams freely according to their own wishes. Chen Mobai was first pulled into Wang Yuanwu's team. Besides him, there were 3 other rogue cultivators, including the one who stayed behind after being injured. His name was Gao Chuo. The other 2 members of the team are a brother and sister from the same school. The man's name is Shi Pengyi, and he is at the 5th level of Kai refining. The woman's name was Luo Lin, and she was at the 3rd level of Kai refining. They were the successors of a small sect, and the 2 people who had just been protected by Chen Mobai. They had volunteered to join this team. Wang Yuanwu didn't say much and simply nodded in agreement. Fellow Taoist Chen, thank you so much just now. Without your help, my fellow disciples and I might have been injured. Luo Lin looked to be in her early 20s. Although her clothes were stained with blood, she had bright eyes and white teeth and a beautiful face. She was a striking sight in their group. Her cultivation level is a bit low. If she could reach the mid-stage of Kai refining, she might have many suitors. Cultivators in the heavenly river realm are very pragmatic. Even when looking for a Taoist partner, they seek someone with similar talent and cultivation level. This way they can complement each other and have a positive, beneficial effect. Especially after cultivating divine sense, the desire for beauty is already very low. Of course, this does not exclude those who particularly enjoy this aspect and deliberately retain this kind of emotional pleasure. It was just something I did, no need for formalities. After Chen Mobai finished speaking, Wang Yuanwu also waited for the junior brother who had sent people back. He gave him the last 5 loose cultivators, and then turned around and walked to his own team. He first offered his condolences to the injured Gao Chuo, and then asked everyone to introduce the spells or magical artifacts they were good at, so as to develop a preliminary team coordination plan for the upcoming team battle. Xi Pengyi possesses a flying sword inherited from his sect, as well as 5 talismans, and is skilled in swordsmanship. Luo Lin and her fellow disciples practiced the same cultivation technique, but she did not have a flying sword. She only had a shield that she bought from the market on Qingguang Island, which was a defensive magic weapon made from the shell of a black-armored tortoise. As a rogue cultivator, Gao Chuo also possessed a hook-shaped magic weapon, a crossbow, and 18 matching spirit arrows, each said to be powerful enough to kill cultivators below the 3rd level of Kai refining. In terms of wealth, Gao Chuo was actually above Xi Pengyi and Luo Lin, so it's no wonder that he dared to stay despite his initial setback. I have some talismans, one for attack and one for defense. Chen Mobai gave a somewhat conservative account of his equipment. He had just used the 5 transformations umbrella to block a wave of wind blades and arrows, and had also used flying needles to kill 2 black plague birds. Xi Pengyi and Luo Lin, the senior and junior brothers and sisters, had already seen his equipment and knew it was extraordinary. Fellow Taoist Chen, approximately how many talismans do you have? Wang Yuanwu, however, asked the most crucial question. After the war started, talismans became consumables. Each one used reduced the remaining supply. He needed to know the exact quantity in order to grasp the true fighting strength of his side. I haven't counted them exactly, but there are probably a few dozen. Chen Mobai hesitated for a moment, but still didn't tell the truth. Even so, it still greatly surprised all the cultivators in the team. You should know that Wang Yuanwu, as the leader of this team guarding the Spirit Tree Array flag, only had 80 talismans on him, including those issued by the sect. Don't worry, fellow Taoist Chen, I will keep in mind all the talismans you lose in the battle. Once we defeat the demonic beast, I will apply to the sect for compensation for you. Wang Yuanwu's words made Chen Mobai feel very comfortable. In fact, he was already paid 5 spirit stones a day, which already covered the loss of talismans during battle. However, in order to boost morale, Wang Yuanwu was very generous, or perhaps it was because the sect was providing the spirit stones anyway, and he was just talking about it. When our team fights, fellow Taoist Chen and I will be at the beginning and end, respectively, with the other 3 fellow Taoists in between. Is that all right? Since it was their first time working together and they lacked chemistry, this monotonous tactic was actually the most suitable. Chen Mobai and the other 3 nodded immediately upon hearing this. Just then, with a whoosh sound, a talisman flew to Wang Yuanwu's front. His expression changed slightly, and he immediately took it. Prepare for battle. A large number of water anacondas and black-shelled turtles have been spotted in the waters on the east side of the island. These black plague birds may be cooperating with them to attack the island. After reading the information contained in the talisman, Wang Yuanwu immediately shouted loudly. The cultivators who were resting and meditating did not hesitate at all and put a pill to restore their spiritual power into their mouths. Then everyone stood in the 5 positions of the spirit tree, according to the 5 teams they had just divided, firmly occupying all areas of this cliff. Rumble! On the east side of Qingguang Island, 5 beams of divine light from the heavenly wood, like divine swords reaching the heavens, crashed heavily onto the boundless lake, creating massive waves that carried countless fragments of demonic beasts ashore. Nearly 1,000 remaining black plague birds rose from the barren reef not far away, scattered widely, and swept towards this place with angry and shrill screams. These beasts are truly fearless. One of the rogue cultivators spat, then picked up a black armor shield, infused it with spiritual power, and placed it at the front of their squad. Chen Mobai frowned slightly. He hadn't expected that such heavy casualties wouldn't make the black plague bird show any signs of retreat or fear. Or perhaps the death of the bird king had driven these demonic beasts completely mad. But no matter what, the most important thing now is to deal with the battle at hand. In their region, there are still 5 heavenly wood divine lights that haven't been used. However, Wang Yuanwu had previously stated that unless a second-tier demonic beast attacked the island, or their western front was on the verge of collapse, they would absolutely not use it again. In other words, they need to hold out for at least 2 hours until the Spirit Tree Array flag is fully recharged. Take good care of yourselves. You can leave the protection of the spirit tree to me and Steward Wang. Chen Mobai gave a few instructions to the 3 people standing between him and Wang Yuanwu, then pinched 4 green arrow talismans between his 5 fingers with his right hand, activated his spiritual power, and flung them into the air. A total of 24 cyan spiritual energy arrows emerged from the void behind him. End of this chapter. Chapter 91 Spirit Leaf. Chen Mobai spread his right hand out in midair. Amidst the buzzing sound, a long arrow of cyan spiritual energy emerged from the void behind them and shot out in an instant. Bang, 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 bang. The 5 black plague birds that had just rushed up the cliff were knocked back, and then the azure arrow exploded, shattering them into clouds of blood mist. Wow! On the other side, Wang Yuanwu was not to be outdone. His crimson flying sword danced like flames, carrying violent spiritual power as it swept across a flock of black plague birds in midair. Several demonic beasts that could not dodge in time were turned into charred remains. The 3 of them, Gao Chuo, also launched their own attacks. A crossbow bolt flew out, accurately killing a black plague bird, but there was no time to reload. Gao Chuo could only drag his right hand, which had just been reattached and was still not in good circulation, to fight the black plague bird that rushed in front of him with his hook-shaped magic weapon. Fortunately, he had his fellow student Shi Pengyi by his side. Holding a black armor shield, Luo Lin moved nimbly, using her movements to block the swift arrows spewed from the mouths of the black plague bird. Shi Pengyi, on the other hand, displayed the strength of the 5th level of Kai refining. Under his control, a purple flying sword moved like lightning, crisscrossing back and forth, suppressing and killing the black plague birds that bypassed Chen Mobai and Wang Yuanwu. Seeing this, Chen Mobai nodded slightly, and then unleashed the remaining 18 spiritual energy arrows from his back. Amidst the loud banging sounds, above the cliff, their area was instantly cleared out. The second-tier ones are coming. Just as everyone breathed a sigh of relief, Wang Yuanwu's expression turned solemn. Chen Mobai was startled and looked at the sky outside Qingguang Island. Sure enough, 2 giant birds, 3 or 4 times larger than the usual black plague birds, appeared in the clouds. One of the black plague bird kings only had 1 wing left. Its eyes were bloodshot, and it coldly stared at them. It was the heavenly wood divine light that erupted from the very spirit tree they were protecting that evaporated one of its wings and nearly knocked it down. Everyone, please take care of yourselves. There are still 5 heavenly wood divine lights remaining on the west bank. After one of the bird kings was killed, the remaining 2 would absolutely not dare to approach without being absolutely certain of their safety. But we may have to face the black plague bird's direct guards, who are equivalent to the late Kai refining stage next. But no matter how dangerous it is, we must not let our front line fall. Seeing that the spirit tree was being targeted by the bird king, Wang Yuanwu couldn't help but break out in a sweat. However, he was a man of great experience and knowledge, and even under immense pressure, he calmly observed the situation and issued orders. Amidst the harsh voices, sure enough, a flock of birds twice the size of ordinary black plague birds left the bird king's side, riding the gale, and flew towards them. Boom! Before the giant bird even arrived, a massive tornado formed on the shore, whipping up towering waves that crashed down on the spirit tree atop the cliff. The 2 bird kings joined forces to unleash their innate divine abilities, not only to provide cover for the group of loyal guards, but also to probe whether Qingguang Island had any other trump cards up its sleeve. When Chen Mobai saw the enormous tornado, which was large enough to sweep up the entire cliff they were standing on, his expression changed slightly. They held onto their last trump card, the Yi Wood Divine Thunder Talisman, but he still looked at Wang Yuanwu first, and sure enough, even he possessed a 2nd-tier spirit talisman. This leader of the Divine Wood sect had even more trump cards. Wang Yuanwu gritted his teeth, nodded to another Shenmu sect disciple, who immediately took out a talisman and inserted it into the spirit tree. Call! As if a gentle breeze had blown by, the once bare spirit tree, after the talisman was inserted, had a branch that emitted a clear light and sprouted a green bud in the blink of an eye, which then quickly grew into a green leaf the size of a palm. Wang Yuanwu flicked his flying sword, and the green leaf was cut off. Go! After taking a pill to restore spiritual power, The Shenmu sect disciple, who had inscribed a talisman, poured all his spiritual power into the severed green leaf. Instantly, a bright light shone forth, transforming into a massive shield of light that covered the entire cliff. Just then, the two second-tier bird kings unleashed a massive tornado that crashed down with towering waves. Rumble! The earth shook violently, and Chen Mobai used his wooden umbrella as a support to keep himself from swaying. This heavenly wood divine light array has quite a few functions. He had these thoughts in mind, wondering if there were any other functions besides the heavenly wood divine light and the green leaf light shield. The big birds are coming, 20 in total. Each team will deal with 4. Those in the late Kai refining stage should go first and take down as many as you can. The rest of the Black Plague birds will be handled by the rest of the team. Remember to protect yourselves. Wang Yuanwu quickly assigned tasks, then took the lead, wielding his crimson flying sword to encircle the 3 large birds flying at the front. Chen Mobai gritted his teeth and selected one of the large birds. However, after looking at the nearly 100 ordinary Black Plague birds led by these large birds, fearing that the other members of the team might not be able to handle them, he threw out 4 more green arrow talismans before fighting the large birds. Amidst the sounds of banging, the large bird in front of Chen Mobai spewed a powerful gust of wind, directly shattering the cyan spiritual energy arrows. But the remaining 23 arrows were aimed at a large flock of Black Plague birds that were rushing towards it from the side. Blood splattered, black feathers flew everywhere. After cleaning up, Chen Mobai, holding the 5 transformations umbrella, faced off against the Black Plague bird that was a full meter in size. Buzz! 2 cyan wind blades extended from the flapping wings of the Black Plague bird, resembling 2 crescent-shaped blades of light, and landed on Chen Mobai's head in a figure 8. The umbrella is open. The misty fog seemed unable to withstand the impact of the wind blades, and some of it burst open, but it eventually dissipated. Fortunately, although these large birds have powerful bloodlines, they are not skilled in cultivation, and the power of their spells did not exceed the limit of the 5 transformations umbrella. Wu Wan's expertise in appraising treasures is trustworthy. He said this defensive talisman can withstand attacks from late-stage Kai refining cultivators. Despite being clearly at the peak of the first tier, the Black Plague bird still managed to withstand the attack. However, it seems to be the limit. Chen Mobai looked at the 2 new scratches on the umbrella after he retrieved it, and decided to focus on dodging from now on. He was not Wang Yuanwu after all. Wang Yuanwu had already reached the 9th level of Kai refining, possessed superb swordsmanship, rich combat experience, and was equipped with talismans and magical artifacts provided by the Divine Wood Sect. He was able to fight the 3-headed bird alone without being at a disadvantage. Violent, after the 2 wind blades were neutralized, the large bird opened its beak and spat out a series of swift wind arrows. Chen Mobai did not want to use the 5 transformations umbrella to block them head-on, so he threw out 2 wooden shield talismans. But how could a low-grade first-order talisman possibly withstand the giant bird's swift arrows? In just 2 breaths, the 2 wooden shields that had appeared in midair shattered and disappeared into spiritual energy. However, Chen Mobai had already taken advantage of this time to move to another location. The arrow missed its mark, kicking up a cloud of dust on the cliff. Just then all 5 teams had begun fighting. However, not everyone was particularly strong or lucky. Soon, Chen Mobai heard a scream. Someone died. End of this chapter. Chapter 92, Black Feather Shield. However, Chen Mobai had no energy left to pay attention to anyone else. All his attention was focused on the large bird suspended in midair. Sizzle! As dust rose, 6 earthen yellow flying needles shot out from Chen Mobai's sleeves, piercing towards the rapidly approaching large bird. Ding ding ding! A first-tier peak demonic beast. Its strength is the strongest opponent Chen Mobai has faced since arriving in the heavenly river realm. 6 flying needles landed on the bird's body, and black feathers stood up, forming a spiritual energy shield that swept the needles away. Its wings can unleash wind blades, its mouth can spew wind arrows, and the feathers covering its entire body have been crafted into a defensive shield. Its weaknesses are most likely its eyes and claws. Although Chen Mobai didn't have much combat experience, he seemed to have a unique talent, and he grew rapidly in such intense battles. He tested the strength of the wind blades with the 5 transformations umbrella and triggered the black feather shield with flying needles. He had basically formed data in his mind about the great bird's combat ability and innate supernatural powers. Let's test the waters. Chen Mobai glanced at the large, black-feathered, red-eyed bird that was flapping its wings and charging menacingly toward him. He then channeled his spiritual energy and activated 2 wooden shield talismans. The cyan wooden shield only held for a breath before being shattered by the wind blades, but the 5 transformations umbrella had already opened, directly absorbing the 2 weakened wind blades, though it consumed a lot of spiritual energy. Although using talismans consumes very little spiritual power, he uses them frequently. Chen Mobai has already used nearly 20 talismans in the battle. Moreover, the 5 transformations umbrella, this talisman, consumed more spiritual energy than he had anticipated. No wonder it's so cheap. Chen Mobai estimated that he had less than 70% of his spiritual power left, and decided that it would be best to use the 5 transformations umbrella sparingly in the future. At that moment, the black plague bird fiercely flapped its wings and charged straight at him. He immediately threw out a green arrow talisman and an entangling talisman, and then 4 flying needles shot out from his sleeve, piercing the bird's eyes and claws with a sharp whooshing sound. A harsh voice rang out. The large bird's black feathers stood on end, and its spiritual energy shield reappeared, but it closed its eyes and curled up its claws. The spiritual arrows and flying needles were all blocked by the black feather's spiritual energy shield. Only the binding talisman worked, and the vines that sprouted from the cliff rocks bound the bird. But in just a moment, the bird was cut into 7 or 8 pieces by the bird's wings. As expected, the judgment was correct. Chen Mobai's eyes lit up when he saw this scene. The black plague bird was deliberately avoiding being attacked in the eyes and on the palms of its claws. The black feather shield's weaknesses should be these 4 places. Just then, another wail came from nearby, as if another cultivator had been seriously injured. Chen Mobai had no choice but to use the nourishing mind and forging spirit technique to suppress all his unusual emotions and devote himself wholeheartedly to the battle against the beast before him. He reached into his pocket, opened a bottle of black water, opened his mouth to breathe, and circulated his spiritual energy to the 12th floor. The frost magic is ready to be unleashed. At the same time, Chen Mobai threw out 10 binding talismans and 10 poison talismans in one go. The 10 vine branches were driven into the cliff rocks at one end, and the other end wrapped around the black plague bird, which was charging straight at him and whose path was easy to predict. Like a serpent, the large bird was about to flap its wings to cut off these restraints again, but it felt its bones were soft and its movements were stiff. The poison talisman is not actually poison, but rather it can make the wood energy in the opponent's body more vigorous, causing an imbalance in the originally balanced 5 elements. This talisman is not fatal. One can recover by meditating and regulating one's breathing for a period of time. But what Chen Mobai wanted was that moment of stiffness. He opened his mouth and exhaled, and the last 2 flying needles in the needle box landed in front of him. All the black water formed 2 spiral ice spears around the flying needles. Then, accompanied by magnetic repulsion, the flying needles propelled the ice spears to burst into their fastest speed, piercing into the eyes of the large bird that was unable to move. Violence, even though it closed its eyes and opened its black feather shield in time, the black plague bird's eyelids were still pierced by the ice spear under Chen Mobai's full-force ice spell, and it let out an unprecedentedly sharp scream. The raging demonic energy caused the giant bird to instantly shatter 10 vines. Its wings flapped continuously, and in an instant, more than a dozen wind blades burst out in all directions, shattering the incoming green arrow talismans. Well, faced with such a wide-ranging attack, Chen Mobai had no choice but to open the 5 transformations umbrella again. After deflecting a wind blade in front of him, he risked depleting his spiritual energy and used the water control technique to restore the ice spear back to black water. Then, the 10 flying needles that had been shattered by the black feather shield and scattered across the cliff were drawn back to him by the magnetic force of the needle box. Call, the frost spell was activated again, and 10 smaller but longer and sharper ice spears pierced into various parts of the black plague bird's body, whose eyes had already turned into bloody holes. The large bird had already exhausted its spiritual power during the previous burst of attacks, and it was no longer able to deploy its black feather shield in the face of this wave of attacks. It screamed shrilly as it was pierced by 10 ice spears and fell from midair onto the cliff. But before it died, the giant bird unleashed a sonic attack similar to that of the dead Bird King, causing all the cultivators on the cliff to tremble. It's finally over. Chen Mobai endured the dizziness caused by the sonic attack, felt the less than 0.5% of spiritual power remaining in his dantian, and couldn't help but smile bitterly. He then immediately activated a revival talisman. In an instant, all the negative effects on the body caused by the sound waves disappeared. Not only that, the spiritual energy in the dantian began to flow out little by little, like water from a source. Chen Mobai estimated that he could recover about 10% of his spiritual power every minute, and it was expected that he would be fully recovered in 10 minutes. This was his first time using the restoration talisman, and the feeling of his empty dantian being filled again was quite novel. At this point, he finally had time to pay attention to the rest of the battle. Wang Yuanwu fought 3 opponents alone. In addition to his crimson flying sword, he also took out a first-grade high-quality black armor shield. He had already killed one of the large birds, but it would probably take some more effort to completely defeat it. The 3 of them, Gao Chuo, were caught in a fierce battle, but Chen Mobai only glanced at it and then ignored it. Not far away, 3 cultivators' corpses lay on the cliff, and a small team was about to collapse. However, one small team achieved a brilliant victory, having already joined forces to kill 2 large birds, freeing up one of their late-stage Kai refining cultivators. Chen Mobai exchanged a glance with him, nodded, and then headed to support the team that already had 3 dead cultivators. Rumble! At that very moment, 8 beams of divine light from the heavenly wood erupted simultaneously from the south and north shores of Qingguang Island. The muffled sounds, like thunder, were accompanied by astonishing demonic energy, indicating that an unknown number of demonic beasts had arrived. Chen Mobai's face was pale. He never expected that the battle to defend the island would enter its most intense phase on the very first day. End of this chapter. Chapter 94, 3 Sword Lights, seeking first subscription. 8 beams of clear, bright light, like giant swords, cleaved straight into the surface of the lake. A series of astonishing demonic auras suddenly erupted, and 2 powerful demonic beasts actually withstood the heavenly wood divine light and charged onto Qingguang Island. Zheng Deming blocked one of the second-tier demonic beasts, but no one could stop the other magnificent beast with 2 horns on its head, a human upper body and a snake lower body. A small team of Kai refining cultivators from the divine would sect try desperately to knock it back to the surface of the water, but even with all their magical artifacts and talismans, they could only force it back 3 steps. The price was the complete annihilation of this group of Shenmu sect cultivators. This is bad. The demonic beasts have arrived on the island. Tianmu Shengguang can no longer make a move. At this moment, Wang Yuanwu also killed 3 black plague birds. Turning his head, he saw a mighty demon beast on the south shore of Qingguang Island that had single-handedly broken through the defense line of Shenmu sect and destroyed a spirit tree array flag. He couldn't help but feel anxious. Is the heavenly wood divine light unable to be activated within the area covered by the formation? Or is it because they fear its immense power might damage the island's spiritual veins and harm their own people? After listening to Wang Yuanwu's words, Chen Mobai joined forces with others to deal with the 2 black plague birds while secretly thinking to himself. Just as they were getting anxious, 3 powerful sword lights suddenly shot out from the teleportation array on Qingguang Island and pierced into various parts of the magnificent beast's body. Then, with a flash of sword light, the once invincible monster was instantly torn into more than a dozen pieces. Have the elders from the sect arrived? Seeing this, Wang Yuanwu was both surprised and delighted. Chen Mobai was taken aback at first, then his expression suddenly changed to one of realization. That's right. As one of the 7 major sects in the Eastern Wilderness, the Divine Wood Sect has many foundation establishment experts. When Qingguang Island is besieged by demonic beasts, they will definitely send people to help protect it. With a teleportation array at your disposal, Even a core formation cultivator might be able to arrive at a crucial moment. Perhaps these reinforcement elders have already arrived, just waiting for the second-tier demon beasts to come to the island and walk right into their trap. As expected, after slaying the half-human, half-snake demon beast, the three sword lights turned to another second-tier demon beast that was fiercely fighting Zhang Deming. The latter tried to escape when it saw that the situation was not good, but the encirclement function of the Heavenly Wood Divine Light Array was activated, which slowed down its movements. Three sword lights crisscrossed and attacked, coordinating with Zhang Deming and the four Foundation Establishment cultivators to join forces. Amidst the splattering of blood, the monster was killed on the island in the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. Only then did Chen Mobai breathe a sigh of relief. He had already felt the urge to run away when the monsters rampaged on the island. Violent, just as the monsters that had landed on the island were being killed, the two Black Plague Bird Kings circling above the western shore of the lake also let out a loud cry. This appears to be a signal of retreat. The large birds that were originally besieging Chen Mobai and his group simultaneously spat out a string of swift arrows, washing the cliff like a storm before flying into the air and leading the small group of surviving Black Plague birds away from Qingguang Island. Kill as many as you can to lighten the burden for future battles. Wang Yuanwu's expression hardened, and he rode his flying sword to chase after the Black Plague bird that had fallen behind. The remaining cultivators on the cliff launched their crossbow bolts and talismans in unison, coordinating their attack. Chen Mobai and the late-stage Kai refining cultivator joined forces and took advantage of the moment to kill a large bird. Then, they threw two green arrow talismans and shot down three fleeing Black Plague birds. However, they were all rational people and did not leave the cliff area to pursue the killer. Once all the Black Plague birds were out of their attack range, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. However, the atmosphere was still a bit somber. On just the first day of guarding the island, 5 cultivators had already closed their eyes forever. Junior brother Kai, cremate these 5 fellow Taoists and return them to their families according to the roster after the war. For those without families, we'll find an auspicious burial site on the island. Wang Yuanwu gave an instruction to a disciple of the Shenmu sect, who immediately nodded. Chen Mobai had very mixed feelings, because one member of his squad had also been killed. It was Gao Chuo, whose arm was injured before, whose cultivation level of the 3rd level of Kai refining was really insufficient in such a battle. Despite having Shi Pengyi's help, Luo Lin, who was at the same level, was still pale and had one arm hanging down. She had been using her black armor shield to help defend against the Black Plague bird's swift arrows. Not only was her spiritual power exhausted, but the bones in her right hand could no longer withstand the attack and had broken. If the Black Plague birds were to charge again, she would probably die. One by one, regeneration talismans were distributed to each cultivator. Chen Mobai was also given a resurrection talisman and a return to life talisman. After taking them, he walked to Gao Chuo's corpse and closed the latter's still open eyes. As the raging flames engulfed the 5 cultivators who had been chatting and laughing just moments before, Chen Mobai felt a sense of bewilderment. Is this what war is? Having lived on Earth since childhood, he had never experienced such a situation where he was in the prime of his life, yet was separated forever. He looked at the other surviving cultivators and found that, although they also had sadness on their faces, there was a sense of normalcy in their eyes. The cultivators in this world have a very hard life. Chen Mobai thought this to himself, but he couldn't say it out loud. He could only stand by the cremation pile, watching Gao Chuo's remaining form disappear and turn to ashes. Fellow Taoist Chen, we may need to regroup. At this moment, Wang Yuanwu walked over. Manager Wang, you can make the arrangements. I have no objections. Chen Mobai nodded gently, not wanting him to notice that his emotions were a little different from theirs. Well, 4 fellow Taoists are too badly injured and have decided not to participate in the island defense battle. We now only have 18 people left. My plan is to divide into 4 teams, with 4 fellow Taoists in each team. Then, Junior brother Liu and I will serve as mobile personnel to support you at any time during the battle. Fellow Taoist Chen, you and fellow Taoist Shi Luo will remain in the same team. After I leave, I will transfer junior brother Kai over. Wang Yuanwu's considerations were very thorough, and Chen Mobai expressed his agreement. That junior brother Liu is a disciple of the Divine Wood sect who can manipulate the spirit tree array flags with talismans. He is said to be an array master. With him and Wang Yuanwu in charge, they will indeed feel more secure. As for junior brother Kai, he was a cultivator with a square face and a robust build. Chen Mobai and he had just joined forces to kill a black plague bird, and their teamwork was quite good. On one side of the cliff, the newly formed team gathered together. Luo Lin regained some color in her face. The regeneration talisman was working well. Her broken bones had been set, and she was now circulating her Kai and blood. Shi Pengyi, however, sat cross-legged beside her, breathing deeply and diligently, not letting any opportunity to cultivate go to waste. My name is Kai Rui. I cultivate the Crimson Flame Sword technique and am also a talisman maker. The newly arrived Shenmu sect disciple first introduced himself. End of this chapter. Chapter 95. Authentic Foundation Building Pill. Fellow Taoist Kai. When I went out of the island with fellow Taoist Kai who to hunt monsters before, I saw him use a Crimson Flame Sword talisman, which was very powerful. Upon hearing Kai Rui's introduction, Chen Mobai's eyes lit up, and he naturally started a conversation. Senior brother Kai Hu. He is a candidate for the true disciple of our Shenmu sect. If there are extra foundation establishment pills in the next batch, he might be able to get one. Kai Rui also knew the Marquis of Kai, and when he spoke of him, his face was full of admiration. Oh, isn't the foundation establishment pill from the divine Wood sect something you can exchange for after accumulating enough contribution points? Seeing that Kai Rui seemed quite talkative, Chen Mobai tried asking about the Shenmu sect. It's not that simple. To refine a genuine foundation establishment pill, you need a golden jade lingjai with 1,000-year-old medicinal property. Although our divine Wood sect inherited the largest medicinal garden in Giant Wood Ridge from the 5-element sect, and our ancestors planted many lingjai seeds with great foresight, we can only harvest 10 mature golden jade lingjai every 10 years. Theoretically, one batch of the orthodox foundation establishment pill can produce 10 pills, but basically, you'd be lucky to get 8 or 9. When our divine Wood sect and Golden Light Cliff joined forces to separate from the 5-element sect, we agreed that every time the golden jade lingjai matured, we would give Golden Light Cliff 3. After the division, our Shenmu sect and Jingguang Cliff lineage fought with the remaining 3 lineages of the 5-element sect for 20 years. Eventually, everyone grew tired of it and agreed to cease hostilities. One of the conditions for the 5-element sect to recognize the independence of our Shenmu sect was that, when the golden jade lingjai in Giant Wood Ridge matured, 3 of them would be given to the 5-element sect. The foundation establishment pills of our 3 sects are all made by Huishan Valley. After the furnace is opened, no matter how many foundation establishment pills are made, Huishan Valley will take 1 pill from each furnace. Basically, every 10 years just for our Shenmu sect, about 30 foundation establishment pills are put into the warehouse. The Shenmu sect has at least 100 disciples at the 9th level of Kai refining. To ensure fairness and impartiality, these 30 foundation establishment pills need to be obtained through sect contribution points. 10,000 contribution points can be exchanged, but the more contribution points you have, the greater your chances of getting them. Although these were simple sect common sense for the disciples of the Shenmu sect, they were rare knowledge for Chen Mobai and Shi Pengyi, and they listened with great interest. This golden jade lingjai is probably the name used in the heavenly river realm. On Earthly Star, it's called Jade Marrow Golden Lingjai, which is quite similar. As Chen Mobai was thinking this, Kai Rui extended the discussion from the foundation establishment pill to explain the order of the true disciples of the Divine Wood sect, which was actually the order in which they could exchange for the foundation establishment pill. Although Kai Hu was not among the 24 true disciples, he was still quite accomplished in cultivation. Moreover, he was a disciple of a foundation establishment elder surnamed Zai from the Divine Wood sect. If the next batch of foundation establishment pills was completed, and there were still some left after supplying the true disciples, he would be able to reserve one. The foundation establishment, elder surnamed Zai. Upon hearing this, Chen Mobai recalled the handsome junior brother Zai, who had been keeping his head down. He must be a descendant of that elder. No wonder the Marquis of Kai was willing to train him in Yunmeng's. It turns out they were fellow disciples. Fellow Taoist Kai, I have heard that in addition to the 1,000-year golden jade lingjai as the main ingredient, there is another method for refining the foundation establishment pill. Suddenly, Luo Lin asked a question that Chen Mobai was very concerned about. Yes, using the golden jade lingjai as the main ingredient makes it a proper foundation establishment pill. There is another method that uses the inner core of a demon beast, but the success rate of this method is not high, and the demon beasts that can condense inner cores are at least at the peak of the second tier, which is very difficult to hunt. Kai Rui nodded and answered the question. Chen Mobai was hearing this for the first time and asked about it with great interest. It was normal for him, as a rogue cultivator, not to know this, and the other 3 members of the team did not suspect anything. Shi Pengyi and Luo Lin also heard it from their master. The founder of their small sect successfully established his foundation by consuming a foundation establishment pill made from the inner core of a demon beast. He then recorded this experience in the sect's secret manual, which has been passed down to this day. I feel that the 2 demonic beasts that rushed up to Qingguang Island and were killed this time should both be at the peak of the second tier. They may have already condensed their inner cores. If that's the case, we might be able to get a few more foundation establishment pills this time. Kai Rui was somewhat envious when he said this, but his cultivation level was only at the 8th level of Kai refining. Even if he accumulated enough contribution points, he might not be qualified. Is there any difference between this foundation establishment pill, made from the inner core of a demonic beast, and a regular foundation establishment pill? There are differences, but the effects are similar. However, each batch can only produce 2 or 3 pills at most, but all the auxiliary ingredients are indispensable, which is a bit uneconomical. At this point, Kai Rui couldn't help but shake his head. Huishan Valley is unwilling to refine this kind of foundation establishment pill because each time they refine a foundation establishment pill, it will delay the alchemist's cultivation for a year. They only want to refine the orthodox foundation establishment pill, which takes the same amount of time. However, it is precisely because of this that the other alchemists in the eastern wilderness have value. While Huishan Valley was unwilling to refine foundation establishment pills, which used demon beast inner cores as the main ingredient, the other alchemists were eager to do so. The major sects and even immortal cultivation families in the eastern wilderness have trained their own alchemists, with the ultimate goal of refining this foundation establishment pill. However, after listening, Chen Mobai felt that the person in charge of Huishan Valley was wise and profound. After all, if they really monopolized the refining of foundation establishment pills, the status of returning Heaven Valley would probably not be as transcendent as it is now. It would definitely be targeted by the other 6 major sects, and might even face annihilation. Fellow Taoist Kai, when will the next batch of golden jade lingjai mature at the Divine Wood sect? Chen Mobai asked a question, which drew strange looks from the rest of the team. Fellow Taoist, you may not be able to wait. The pills are ripe this year and have already been sent to returning Heaven Valley. When the new batch of disciples enters the sect next year, this batch of foundation establishment pills will be in the sect's treasury and available for exchange. Kai Rui understood Chen Mobai's meaning and said with great regret, the Divine Wood sect recruits disciples once every 10 years, which coincides with the time it takes to refine the foundation establishment pill, in order to ensure the orderly inheritance of the lineage from generation to generation. Even if Chen Mobai is a genius, he will have to wait another 10 years before he has a chance to compete for those foundation establishment pills. Then, what about the foundation establishment pill, refined from the inner core of this demonic beast? Thinking of this, Chen Mobai continued to ask. Of the 3 foundation establishment seniors who came to help, 2 of them, judging from the sword light, should be the senior uncles of Jin Guangya. The inner cores of the 2 peak second-tier demon beasts killed today should probably be shared with them. The remaining batch should be able to refine 2 foundation establishment pills by senior Uncle Zheng. But there are at least 20 or 30 senior brothers and sisters in the sect who have accumulated enough contribution points and are waiting in line after the 24 true disciples. When Kai Rui said these words, he himself sighed slightly. He was also aiming for the batch of orthodox foundation establishment pills 10 years later, But even if he reached the Kai refining perfection stage by then, he might not be able to compete with these senior brothers and sisters. Aren't there any exceptions? The kind where someone is guaranteed to reach the foundation establishment pill as soon as they enter the sect? Chen Mobai asked, unwilling to give up. It's not that we haven't had any. 10 years ago, when we were recruiting disciples, we snatched a genius with a heavenly spiritual root from a small sect. Ancestor Fu personally came out of seclusion and rewarded him with a foundation establishment pill. There will be 2 more chapters tonight. Please subscribe and support us. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 96, Two-Phase Skill. Heavenly Spiritual Root. Upon hearing this, Chen Mobai pondered for a moment. He remembered the wooden spirit talisman he had left unused, and an idea popped into his head. But he immediately laughed at himself for being so fanciful. Fellow Taoist Kai, I don't know when this battle to defend the island will end. Although I have reached the 7th level of Kai refining, I still lack combat skills. Do you have any extra Crimson Flame sword talismans? Could you sell me a few? After a brief conversation, Chen Mobai brought the topic back to where it all began. The Crimson Flame sword talisman is incredibly powerful. Kai Rui used one during the battle just now, and it killed a black plague bird. Moreover, it pierced through the black feather shield head-on. Compared to Chen Mobai's arduous task of using all his talismans and magical artifacts, along with the added benefit of his painstakingly cultivated ice magic, Kai Rui appeared to be handling the situation with ease. You've come to the right person. In the sect, besides completing missions, I earned spirit stones by making talismans. Upon hearing this, Kai Rui's eyes lit up, and he immediately took out 3 Crimson Flame sword talismans from his storage bag. This is a sword talisman. The sect's internal price is 8 spirit stones, while the shops in the market sell it for 10 spirit stones. I'll give you the internal price. How much do you want? I can only afford one. Chen Mobai touched his school bag, smiled wryly, and took out 8 spirit stones. Kai Rui smiled and accepted it, then drew one of the Crimson Flame sword talismans and gave it to Chen Mobai, carefully explaining the key points and tricks of using this talisman. I heard there are also 2 sword talismans and 3 sword talismans. What are their prices? After buying a ticket, Chen Mobai began asking the questions that truly concerned him. Kai Rui, upon hearing this, instead offered earnest and heartfelt advice. A single sword talisman costs only 8 spirit stones, while a 2-sword talisman costs 20 spirit stones, and a 3-sword talisman costs as much as 80 spirit stones each. It's not worth it for us Kai refining cultivators to invest so much. The 2-swords talisman actually seals 2 crimson sword lights. However, the complexity and difficulty of its crafting are several times greater than that of the 1-swords talisman. Even if we have the ability, we generally wouldn't attempt to craft the 2-swords talisman. It's not easy to sell, and the chance of failure is high. It's very easy to lose money on just one talisman. Moreover, the power of the 2-sword talismans has not changed qualitatively. It only seals 1 more sword light. Using 2 1-sword talismans is exactly the same as using 2-sword talismans, and it's even cheaper. As for the 3-swords talisman, it is worthwhile if it can be crafted since it can form a small sword array. However, although the 3-swords talisman is classified as a first-grade high-quality talisman, it actually requires a 2nd-grade talisman maker to truly master it, and I do not have the ability to craft it. After listening to Kai Rui's explanation, Chen Mobai finally understood why only 1-sword talisman was sold in the market. The 2-sword talismans are too inefficient. The 3-swords talisman, on the other hand, has very high requirements for crafting. Although it is a first-grade superior item, it is placed in the 2nd-grade display case and is generally only purchased by foundation establishment cultivators. That's a real pity. I was originally planning to buy a 3-swords talisman to learn how to use it, Chen Mobai said, feigning regret. Oh, fellow Taoist Chen is also a talisman maker. No wonder he has so many talismans on him. Kai Rui, Shi Pengyi, and Liu Olin looked enlightened, but Chen Mobai immediately waved his hand modestly, indicating that he was still in the beginner stage. I just want to join the Divine Wood sect, so I'm learning the talisman-making techniques in advance so that I won't be rejected when I enter the sect next year because of this. Haha, fellow Taoist Chen, rest assured. With your age and cultivation level, as long as you can master any one of the 5 life-giving talismans, any of your senior uncles will take you into their sect. Kai Rui was delighted by Chen Mobai's longing for the Shenmu sect, and shared some basic knowledge about the sect's recruitment of disciples, which made the other 3 members of the team nod frequently and benefit greatly. If you really want the 3 Swords talisman, I know that senior brother Wang happens to have one, but I don't know if he would be willing to part with it and sell it to you. Upon hearing this, Chen Mobai looked surprised, but then he remembered Wang Yuanwu's Crimson Flying Sword, which clearly also followed the path of the Crimson Flame Sword technique, and he suddenly realized, isn't the ultimate technique of the Divine Tree sect the scripture of immortality? How come fellow Taoist Kai, Steward Wang and fellow Taoist Kai, who are all cultivating fire attribute techniques? Chen Mobai didn't quite understand this. Shouldn't the disciples of the divine wood sect cultivate wood attribute techniques? Although my Shenmu sect is a branch of the wood lineage of the 5 Elements sect, the 5 lineages of the 5 Elements sect have long since shared knowledge and resources over thousands of years of inheritance. They have each copied a copy of the fundamental laws of the 5 lineages. That is why our Shenmu sect and Jingguang Cliff dared to separate from the 5 Elements sect. The inheritances of our 2 sects were copied from the same library, and we have all the cultivation techniques with the 5 Elements attributes. However, it is said that the supreme divine power of the 5 Elements sect, the orthodox cultivation method of the primordial Tao fruit, has always been held in the earth veins. But the primordial Tao fruit can only be comprehended by those who have reached the golden core stage and possess a heavenly spiritual root. In fact, it doesn't matter whether our divine wood sect and golden light cliff have this cultivation method or not. Moreover, in my opinion, the simplified version of the primordial Tao fruit, the 2 phases technique, is more suitable for ordinary cultivators like us. It gives those of us with ordinary spiritual roots a chance to form a core. Chen Mobai didn't quite understand what Kai Rui was saying. He was hearing many of these terms for the first time. What is the Hun Yuan Dao Guo? What is Erxing Gong? On the contrary, Shi Pengyi and Luo Lin, the senior and junior brothers and sisters, showed an expression of longing, as if they had heard of his great reputation and admired him for a long time. Chen Mobai had no choice but to pretend to be a cultivator from the countryside and humbly ask for guidance. This primordial Tao fruit is the #1 divine power in the eastern wilderness. In the past, the primordial ancestor of the 5 Elements sect used this divine power to sweep across the eastern wilderness and even made a great name for himself in the eastern lands, known as the #1 nascent soul cultivator in the eastern pole. It's just a pity that since the primordial ancestor passed away, no one has been able to master this divine power. The 2-phase technique is a simplified version of the primordial Tao fruit, which requires you to choose 2 attribute techniques from the 5 elements to cultivate at the same time. For example, disciples of our Shenmu sect usually choose the wood attribute longevity scripture and the fire attribute crimson flame sword technique. This will be slower in the early stages, but when they reach the foundation establishment stage, the spiritual power cultivated by the Crimson Flame Sword technique will use the spiritual power of the wood attribute longevity scripture as resources, which can increase the probability of forming the core by 30%. It is said that the Hun Yuan Dao Guo is to use the Xiang Gong to practice the 5 elements in turn, and finally unify the 5 elements to form a Hun Yuan True Kai that can break all the 5 elements techniques in the world. End of this chapter. Chapter 97 Future Planning. After listening to Kai Rui's slightly proud introduction, Chen Mobai had only one thought in his mind. That's quite a boast. It's almost as good as the 7 Yuan Shen cultivation techniques of the earthly Yuan Star Immortal sect. The Kunpeng Dao Academy's 6 Imperial Scriptures claims that after mastering it to its ultimate level, one can grasp the 6 primordial energies of yin, yang, wind, rain, darkness, and light, and have the laws and changes of all things in the universe at one's fingertips, allowing the primordial spirit to roam in endless realms. Even the 6 imperial scriptures didn't dare claim to have broken through all the 5 elements cultivation techniques in the world. Because of the wood attribute eternal spring skill passed down by Jumeng Dao Academy, Although the name is very ordinary, after cultivating to the primordial spirit level, it is said that time stops and the appearance is immortal. Before one's lifespan ends and one passes away, one can lock one's state at the peak of one's life forever. If the 6 imperial scriptures cannot break the everlasting spring technique, then it certainly wouldn't dare claim to have broken all the 5 elements techniques in the world. Chen Mobai did not refute, but instead showed a shocked expression after listening, wondering how there could be such a powerful supernatural power as the primordial Tao fruit in the world. What he was really thinking was, if the primordial Tao fruit was so powerful, why didn't the primordial ancestor of the 5 elements sect break through to the nascent soul stage, but instead died of old age? It is evident that this number 1 divine power in the eastern wilderness is only good for combat. In terms of breaking through realms or even pursuing immortality, it is probably not as good as the jade purity scripture of the immortal sects. Therefore, there is one statement by Kai Rui that he strongly agrees with. Compared to the unattainable primordial Tao fruit, which has demanding cultivation conditions, this 2 phases technique is more suitable for him. Putting everything else aside, the fact that he could increase his chances of forming a core by 30% after reaching the foundation establishment stage was enough to excite him. It should be noted that the golden elixir jade rejuvenation pill of the immortal sect can increase the chance of forming a golden core by 20%. With these 2 conditions met, plus the 30% plus the 20%, if he can reach the foundation establishment perfection stage, he feels like he's already swallowed half of the golden core. That's a bit too far ahead. Chen Mobai took a deep breath to calm himself down. Is this 2 phases skill really that miraculous? He was still a little skeptical. He knew that although there were cultivation techniques in the immortal sects that could increase the probability of forming a core, none of them were as effective as the 2 phases technique, which directly increased the probability by 30%. That's right. 30 years ago, our sect's patriarch Fu achieved the golden core stage in one fell swoop with the 2 phases technique, becoming the 2nd golden core true person of our divine wood sect. That's why the 5 elements sect, which was originally unwilling to give up, was willing to sit down and negotiate with us, and acknowledge the independence of our divine wood sect and golden light cliff. Ultimately, it's just that we have an additional golden core cultivator on our side, which has completely balanced the power between the 2 sides, allowing this century-long peace agreement to be signed. Kai Rui's words gradually made Chen Mobai somewhat believe them. Before the 5 elements sect split up, it had 1 nascent soul cultivator and 5 golden core cultivators, making it the most powerful sect in the eastern wilderness. Fellow Taoist Kai, have you also cultivated this 2 phases technique? Chen Mobai asked again. The latter immediately shook his head, a wry smile on his face. This is a privilege reserved for true disciples. Moreover, cultivating this dual-phase technique requires more resources and time than cultivating a single technique. You can't feel it when you're practicing Kai cultivation, but after you reach the foundation establishment stage, every breakthrough is extremely difficult. If it weren't for the longevity scripture which can add 60 years to your lifespan, I estimate that Ancestor Fu would never have reached the core formation stage. Chen Mobai didn't seem to care after hearing this. He already knew that, although the major realms of the Heavenly River realm were the same as those of the immortal sect, the division of minor realms was completely different. In the Heavenly River realm, the foundation establishment, core formation, and nascent soul stages are each divided into 4 minor realms: early, middle, late, and perfect. However, within the immortal sects, just like the Kai refining stage, foundation establishment, core formation, and nascent soul are divided into 9 minor realms. The reason is that this makes breakthroughs much easier and reduces bottlenecks. In fact, when the immortal sect first taught the methods of cultivating immortality on Earth Origin Star, the 3 major realms after Kai refining were also divided into 4 minor realms: early, middle, late, and perfect. However, over the past few centuries, due to a lack of resources, 99% of cultivators have been stuck at the bottleneck of these minor realms. Therefore, the nascent soul ancestor of the Heaven Mending Academy later created the cultivation methods for the 9 levels of foundation establishment, core formation, and nascent soul. This cultivation method was passed down to the disciples, And 200 years later, the first nascent soul cultivator native to the earthly star was finally born in the immortal sect. As it turns out, after the original 4 minor realm bottlenecks were divided into 9 levels, the difficulty of breaking through them became much less. The probability of eventually reaching perfection in cultivation increases by nearly 50%. Chen Mobai felt that if he could join the Divine Wood sect, he could first choose to cultivate the eternal life scripture, then become a true disciple, obtain the 2 phases technique, and replace the fire attribute technique that his fellow practitioner was cultivating with the pure yang scroll that he had prepared in advance. If one can truly succeed in establishing a foundation, then during the cultivation of the 9th level of the foundation establishment stage of the pure yang scroll, one will gradually refine the spiritual essence cultivated from the wood attribute technique of the longevity scripture. For the disciples of the Divine Wood sect, the most difficult bottleneck in minor realms might not be too difficult for him. Furthermore, after cultivating the pure yang scroll to the golden core stage, he could upgrade his spiritual root attribute to heavenly fire spiritual root, which would perfectly meet the requirements for comprehending the primordial Tao fruit. Although I feel that this #1 divine ability in the Eastern wilderness is probably not as good as the 7 primordial spirit techniques inherited by the immortal sects, given how much Kai Rui boasted about it, I might as well try to learn it if I have the opportunity in the future. In an instant, Chen Mobai had already roughly planned out his future cultivation method. However, whether it will actually work out still needs further careful consideration. But first and foremost, one must join the Shenmu sect. That night, Chen Mobai and Kai Rui had a long talk and felt like they had known each other for a long time. After listening for a while, Shi Pengyi took a spirit stone, closed his eyes, and sat down to meditate and cultivate, working very diligently. On the contrary, Luo Lin, whose arm bone had just been set and who could only rest, listened with great interest as the two talked about everything from the Divine Wood sect to cultivation techniques, and then exchanged experiences in making talismans. In this respect, Chen Mobai was naturally inferior to Kai Rui, a first-tier talisman maker. However, the immortal sect system he had been taught was completely different from that of the heavenly river realm. Occasionally, he would share a few words about the little knowledge he had learned in class, which amazed Kai Rui. He could only sigh that Chen Mobai would definitely become an outstanding talisman maker in the future. Chen Mobai could only be modest about this. He was only good at theory, but a complete mess when it came to actual practice. After discussing talisman making, the two talked about their combat experience against monsters like the Black Plague bird. During their exchange, they would occasionally ask Luo Lin how their team could better cooperate to survive the island defense battle while killing more monsters. As the sun rose over the lake on the horizon, Wang Yuanwu came over to distribute the spirit stones for the day. Chen Mobai and Kai Rui were still a little reluctant to leave. End of this chapter. Chapter 98, Golden Light Cliff and Ningla Mountain. Fellow Taoist Chen, this is today's allocation of spirit stones. Wang Yuanwu put it in a small cloth bag. Chen Mobai took it with some doubt and felt it, finding that there were more than 5 pieces. Uncle Zheng's latest order is to kill a first-tier peak demonic beast and give him a reward of 4 spirit stones. Upon hearing this, Chen Mobai couldn't help but show unexpected joy. He opened the small cloth bag and saw that there were 11 spirit stones inside. In addition to the 5 spirit stones he received for responding to the call to arms today, he also killed a Black Plague bird on his own yesterday, and together with Kai Rui, he killed another one, for which he received an extra 6 spirit stones. The feathers of this Black Plague bird are also an excellent material for refining weapons. After fellow Taoist Chen accepts these spirit stones, the Shenmu sect will be responsible for disposing of the corpses of these demonic beasts. Wang Yuanwu explained again, and Chen Mobai suddenly realized that these spirit stones were the price for acquiring materials from demonic beasts. However, he didn't know how to handle these things anyway. Even if he ended up in his own hands, he'd only get some roasted chicken wings at most. Giving them to the Divine Wood sect would at least get him a few spirit stones, which was a win-win situation. Compared to that, the fact that the Divine Wood sect was willing to give them spirit stones made Chen Mobai admire Zhang Deming, who was in charge, even more. At least he saw that the faces of the cultivators guarding the spirit tree flag, who had been frowning because of the deaths and injuries of their teammates yesterday, relaxed again after they obtained more spirit stones today. Those independent cultivators who had been hesitant about quitting to save their lives were now hesitant to speak up. At least for the moment they received the spirit stones, all the independent cultivators were full of energy and united as one. Someone's coming. After distributing spirit stones, Wang Yuanwu was about to discuss the next cooperative tactics with everyone when a bright sword light fell on the cliff. I am Ning Leshan from Jingyuanya, who is the team leader here. The sword light dissipated, revealing a middle-aged man with a square face and 3 long wisps of beard. Wang Yuanwu of Shenmu sect greets Uncle Ning. Chen Mobai recognized the sword light as one of the 3 who had rushed out of the teleportation array yesterday to kill a second-tier demonic beast. It was a Foundation establishment cultivator. Yes, I was assigned by Senior Brother Zhang to guard the defense line on the west bank. I've come here to get to know you all. After saying this, Ning Leshan nodded, mounted his sword, and flew away from there, heading towards the next location of the Spirit Tree Array flags. Although this Foundation establishment cultivator only came and left, it gave their group even more confidence. This means that the Heavenly Wood Divine Light has been used up, and the second-tier demonic beast has rushed to the island. With at least a Foundation establishment cultivator behind them, the sense of security is instantly different. The people at Golden Light Cliff are all sword cultivators, and among those of the same level, their combat strength is generally among the top. Kai Rui knew that Chen Mobai was a rogue cultivator from a small place in Yunmeng's, and didn't know much about the common knowledge of the major sects in the eastern wilderness, so he started to explain it to him. Among the 5 lineages of the 5-element sect, the metal lineage has always been the most powerful. After the passing of the primordial ancestor, if he hadn't brought up the Golden Light Cliff, the Golden Core ancestor of the Divine Wood sect wouldn't have had the confidence to split up the family. What realm is this Uncle Ning? I've heard that he broke through to the mid-foundation establishment stage 5 years ago. I just don't know if he has cultivated the dual-phase technique. If he has made such progress in cultivating both metal and water, he might be able to try to form his core before his lifespan ends. Every so often, the Shenmu sect would organize a group of disciples who practice sword techniques to go to Jinguang Cliff for exchange and learning. Kai Rui, who practiced the Crimson Flame sword technique, was fortunate enough to stay at Jinguang Cliff for a period of time and remembered the name Ning Leshan very clearly. Since the 2 phases technique offers an opportunity to increase the chances of forming a golden core, how could I not cultivate it? Chen Mobai felt strange. Given Ning Leshan's status as a Foundation establishment cultivator, he must be aiming to form his core. The 2 phases technique increases the chances of forming a golden core so much that he would definitely cultivate it if he were in his shoes. Most of our Shenmu sect disciples who meet the requirements will go on to cultivate the 2 phases technique. But the sword cultivators of Jinguang Cliff are different. Most of them believe that sword cultivation requires a pure sword heart. Cultivating the 2-phase technique will make their hearts impure. It is better to focus on a sword technique that suits their spiritual roots and temperament, so that they can forge ahead and make great progress. Actually, among the 5 lineages of the 5-element sect, only our Divine Wood sect values the 2 phases technique so much, because the longevity scripture can increase lifespan. After Foundation establishment, one can have an extra 60 years to break through the bottleneck. In the other 4 lineages, if one cultivates the 2 phases technique, 9 out of 10 people will die of old age. After listening to Kai Rui's words, Chen Mobai couldn't help but marvel at the unique advantages that the Shenmu sect had. No wonder they dared to take the lead in splitting up the family after the passing of the primordial ancestor. At this moment, Wang Yuanwu gathered everyone together again and began to have them redeploy the defense line, according to the small teams they had divided up the day before. Chen Mobai led Pengyi and his sister to the old place where they had fought yesterday, while Kai Rui stood on the outermost edge, forming the first line of defense with the other Shenmu sect disciples. Violent. Sure enough, a short while later, the 2 second-tier bird kings led more than 1,000 black plague birds to fly over. Seemingly to avoid being wiped out by the Heavenly Wood Divine Light, they scattered and landed on the lake and in the sky. Without any further probing, they went straight into the most dangerous phase of the battle. The location of the Spirit Tree Array flag, where Chen Mobai and his group were located, remained a primary target of the Black Plague bird flock's attacks. It seems that yesterday they tested the limits of their team's strength, and today the two Bird Kings sent 30 first-tier peak birds to surround and kill them aggressively. If it were just Chen Mobai and his group, they would surely perish against such a massive horde of monsters. If we fight to the death, perhaps none of us will survive. However, everyone is full of confidence today. Wang Yuanwu nodded to his junior brother Liu beside him, who, without any hesitation, unleashed the heavenly wood divine light that had been recharged overnight. Amidst a tremendous rumbling sound, the 31st-tier peak Black Plague birds that led the charge, despite their efforts to spread out, still had more than half of them evaporated into a cloud of blood mist by the sudden burst of heavenly wood divine light. Leave all these monsters behind. At Wang Yuanwu's command, Kai Rui and other disciples of the Shenmu sect followed him and fought their way off the cliff. Violent. At this moment, the Bird King, who was standing guard high in the clouds in the distance, let out a fierce shout. Seeing that they had actually used the heavenly wood divine light, the uninjured, peak-level second-tier Bird King immediately flapped its wings, unleashed its true form, and charged towards them. "You beast, how dare you!" Ning Leshan, who had been hiding to the side, flew over on his sword and intercepted the Bird King in midair. Rumble! At the same time, along the other shores of Qingguang Island, bursts of divine light from the heavenly wood also erupted, sweeping the surface of the lake. Then more sword lights appeared, and they began to engage in close combat with the demonic beast army that was attacking the island again. End of this chapter. Chapter 99, Crimson Flame Three Swords Talisman. In the blink of an eye, Chen Mobai had been fighting with demonic beasts on Qingguang Island for 10 whole days. From a handsome young man with a traditional Chinese style who paid attention to his appearance at the beginning, to now wearing short sleeves and with his hair down. If it weren't for the cleansing technique, I'd probably look like a savage now, and the number of people in their team is dwindling. Until now, only 12 remain. However, the remaining ones are mostly elites. Fortunately, everyone Chen Mobai knew survived. Liu Lin had already left the team. After all, she was only at the 3rd level of Kai refining. After 5 days of continuous fighting, even with the replenishment of pills and talismans, she fell into a coma due to exhaustion of spiritual energy and physical strength. But in the end, I survived, and that's more important than anything else. However, 3 days after Shi Pengyi left with Liu Lin, he returned to the team. Besides wanting to earn spirit stones, he also wanted to break through to the 6th level of Kai refining. His spiritual root talent is good, but if he wants to advance further or even pursue foundation establishment, this island defense battle is his best opportunity for advancement. Not only can he obtain spirit stones, but he can also further hone his cultivation techniques. If he can break through to the 7th level of Kai refining in the next few years, then at least before his 60th birthday, Shi Pengyi can try to establish his foundation. Chen Mobai had not participated in the war that established the immortal sects, but he felt that even if it were, it should have been this brutal. There are still 12 of them alive and well, 7 at the late stage of Kai refining, and 5 at the 6th level of Kai refining. One of the Shenmu sect disciples also died. Kai Rui personally cremated him and then left the group for a day with the urn containing his ashes. But upon returning the next day, he once again threw himself wholeheartedly into the battle against the demonic beasts. One of the rogue cultivators, who reached the late stage of Kai refining, also died. Of the remaining independent cultivators, only 3 were able to leave alive like Liu Lin. The pain of separation and death, and the cruelty of battle, allowed Chen Mobai to grow up significantly in just 10 days. "Come, fellow Taoist Chen." Kai Rui tossed the wine jug in his hand to Chen Mobai, who caught it and took a sip quite naturally. He originally didn't like drinking alcohol, since milk tea tasted much better than alcohol. But there's no milk tea in this world, so we have to make do. However, after drinking a lot of this wine, I gradually began to appreciate its flavor. According to Kai Rui, this pot of wine was brewed with jade sprout spirit rice grown on giant wood ridge. It has a mellow taste, A smooth mouthfeel and long-term consumption can even promote cultivation. This pot of wine costs 1 spirit stone. They learned from Shipengyi and the others that not every cultivator in the heavenly river realm could eat spirit rice and drink spirit wine every day. In response, Chen Mobai could only say that agriculture in the Tianhe realm was not developed enough. Although the immortal sect is lacking in resources, there is one thing it has no shortage of: spirit rice. On Earth origin star, whether it is plains or mountains, as long as the terrain is suitable for cultivating spiritual fields, all of them have been developed by the spiritual plant growers of the immortal sects. After all, health is fundamental. If one cannot even get enough spiritual rice, how can the next generation of children be expected to have outstanding talents? The cultivation techniques for spirit rice have reached their pinnacle in the immortal sects. It is precisely because every generation has grown up eating spirit rice over thousands of years that infants with insufficient innate spiritual root attributes are extremely rare in the immortal sects. In places like the heavenly river realm, those with spiritual roots who can sense spiritual energy and cultivate immortality are actually a minority. As a major sect in the eastern wilderness, the Shenmu sect recruits disciples every year and even sends foundation establishment cultivators with a group of people to various cities and villages in the mortal world to measure their spiritual roots. Not only is it inefficient, but there is also a high probability that people with spiritual roots will be missed. 8 years ago, when Liujia Mountain was recruiting disciples in the eastern wilderness, their spirit-crossing envoy actually found a genius with a different spiritual root in the Rain Kingdom, which had been selected by the Divine Wood sect. When Ancestor Fu found out about this, he was furious. If it weren't for the previous generation of the Divine Wood sect's spirit Ferryman seizing a heavenly spirit root, he would probably have been severely punished for this. With such abundant spiritual energy in the heavenly river realm, it would be a waste not to cultivate the land. As Chen Mobai sipped his wine, he was thinking that if he were to join the Divine Wood sect in the future, he would definitely not waste such a good spiritual land resource. Giant Wood Ridge, a 4th-order spiritual vein, is said to be the second largest medicinal herb field in the eastern wilderness. Converting it into farmland would probably be quite troublesome, but Chen Mobai didn't want such a good sacred site. Kai Rui said that there are many vacant and abandoned 1st and 2nd-tier spirit fields around Giant Wood Ridge. Because the Divine Wood sect has been separated for less than 100 years, the number of disciples is not large enough. At present, the area within the sect's sphere of influence is somewhat sparsely populated. Basically, every Kai refining disciple can be assigned a 2nd-tier spiritual vein. I can buy some fast-growing seeds from the earthly star, but they have high requirements for spiritual energy. This will allow me to make perfect use of the abundant spiritual energy in the heavenly river realm. Chen Mobai's mother, Tang Pankui, came from a mountain valley between Dangxia City and Yumu City. The people in this village have made a living by farming for generations. The rice they grow is clear, white, and translucent, with a unique green leaf fragrance. Foundation establishment cultivators in Dangxia City and Yumu City basically only recognize the 2nd-tier water-clear rice grown here. Chen Mobai had been taken to work in the fields when he was a child, and he believed he had some experience in farming. Manager Wang, I need to request to go back and rest for 2 days. After finishing his drink, Chen Mobai walked over to Wang Yuanwu. The latter was taken aback, thinking that Chen Mobai was tired of fighting and wanted to leave. Fellow Taoist Chen, if you are not satisfied with the number of spirit stones, we can discuss it further. Manager Wang, you misunderstand. It's just that the 10 days and nights of non-stop fighting have left me mentally and physically exhausted. If I don't go back and rest for a couple of days, I'm afraid I might get killed by those beasts on the battlefield if I'm not careful. Chen Mobai explained with a wry smile. But besides that, it's also because Dangxia City is going to announce the match list and detailed rules for the Dao Academy entrance exam tomorrow. He needed to rush back to check on his opponents and see if there was anything he needed to be wary of. So that's how it is. I misunderstood you, fellow Taoist. Upon hearing this, Wang Yuanwu immediately apologized, explaining that he had been under immense pressure lately. Yesterday, their squad's battle line had already fallen. If Ning Leshan hadn't repelled the Bird King and provided timely support, they probably wouldn't have been able to retake this place. Even so, the Spirit Tree Array flags they were protecting had been destroyed. Although junior brother Liu was trying his best to repair them, he was not a spirit plant expert after all, so the results were very slow. By the way, Steward Wang, I heard you have a Crimson Flame Three Swords talisman. You know my longing for the Divine Wood sect, and my decision to cultivate the longevity scripture and the Crimson Flame Sword technique. I wonder if you would be willing to part with it and sell it to me. End of this chapter. Chapter 100 Hybrid. Wang Yuanwu hesitated for a moment, thinking that Chen Mobai was also a key member of his team and had helped him a lot during this time. Moreover, given his age and cultivation level, it was not impossible for him to become a true disciple of the Shenmu sect. It would be good to make his acquaintance. So Chen Mobai returned the spirit stones he had received from Wang Yuanwu over the past 10 days to him, and obtained the Crimson Flame Three Swords talisman that Wang Yuanwu had treasured. Fellow Taoist Chen, come back as soon as possible, Kai Rui, who was watching from the side, said with a smile. Shi Pengyi, standing to the side, also clasped his hands in a fist salute towards him, conveying the same meaning without uttering a word. Back in his rented cabin, Chen Mobai's 1-month lease had already expired, but due to the island defense battle, the Shenmu sect extended the lease for another month free of charge for every rogue cultivator who responded to the call to arms. Chen Mobai opened the cover of the hole under the bed and crawled down. In a flash of silver light, he returned to his long-lost home. After tidying himself up, Chen Mobai pushed open the door and headed towards the school. As I walked, I kept seeing the signal that I had connected to Earth Star, and my phone kept sending text messages indicating that I had arrived. Some are related to the mother, Tang Pengqi, while others are related to Qingnu. Then there's Song Zheng. He attended 2 training courses organized by the school, but felt they didn't significantly improve his skills. Since he didn't encounter Chen Mobai on either occasion, he asked if there were any off-campus training courses that were effective for practical combat. After seeing this, Chen Mobai replied that the off-campus training classes were not as good as those organized by the principal. Scrolling to the end, he even saw a text message from Yan Bingxuan. She asked him where he got the fish he ate last time, saying she wanted to buy 2 more online. Chen Mobai could only say that these fish could only be raised in the cold pools and springs of his mother's hometown, and they couldn't be bought online. He said he would bring her 2 more next time if it was convenient. After calling his mother, Tang Pengqi, to let her know he was safe, Chen Mobai went to school. Classroom 203. When Chen Mobai walked in, half of the people had already arrived. This way, squad leader Mo Simon seemed to have forgotten what had happened before and waved cheerfully at him. Song Zheng was sitting in the row in front of her. When he saw Chen Mobai coming over, he raised his eyelids slightly and nodded as a greeting. Didn't Yan Bingxuan come? After Chen Mobai sat down, he casually asked a question. She's already been recommended for admission, so it doesn't matter whether she participates in the battle or not. Instead of wasting time on that, she should focus on cultivating and improving her ice spirit root attribute points. Mo Simon imitated Yan Bingxuan's indifferent tone perfectly. That's true, Chen Mobai nodded, agreeing with Yan Bingxuan's point. If this entrance exam weren't related to his future in the immortal sect, Chen Mobai would rather stay in the heavenly river realm and continue to hone his skills. The battles with the demonic beasts during this period have completely stabilized his previously unstable spiritual power, which had been enhanced by consuming Kai-replenishing spiritual water. He even feels that once his spiritual energy is properly refined, he can easily break through the bottleneck of the 8th level of Kai refining. Hey, it's been a long time, everyone. At that moment, a spirited and energetic young man walked in. It was Zhu Yuan. He's been honing his skills somewhere lately, and he's completely changed from his previous lazy demeanor. He's now like a sharp blade drawn from its sheath, full of fighting spirit and sharpness. Oh, you've broken through to the 8th level of Kai refining. A glint of insight flashed in Shi Jingjing's eyes. She had already seen Zhu Yuan's true level of mastery. That's right. After being sent to the army for training along with Yuan King and enduring unimaginable torture, I was completely transformed. Zhu Yuan stood at the door, radiating a fighting spirit he had never felt before. On the contrary, Shi Yuanqing remained quiet, but the childishness on his face had completely disappeared. When he stood there, he was as immovable as a mountain, and his whole person gave people an indescribable sense of weight. It seems that you should be able to enter the final round of this battle. Shi Jingjing glanced at Shi Yuanqing again. Her face fell, as she hadn't been very confident in her ability to fight. She turned and nestled in Cao Yailing's arms, pouting and looking dejected. If those 4 Kai refining stage 9 cultivators all participate in the entrance exams for the 4 great academies, I feel that I can take first place in the 10 great academies arena. Zhu Yuan's words made Chen Mobai, who was looking down at his phone and communicating with King Nu, unable to help but look up and glance at him. After confirming that this guy couldn't possibly beat him, Chen Mobai lowered his head again and continued chatting with King Nu. Has the match schedule been released yet? This was sent by King Nu. During this period, she basically went back and forth between the alchemy room and her rented small apartment, busy refining first-grade Kai-replenishing spiritual water for him. Because she had already been admitted to the Jumeng Taoist Academy, she had no interest in the entrance examination for the academy. It hasn't reached us yet, but it's probably already been distributed to the schools. After all, they said the matchmaking schedule would be released today, the day we filled out the applications. Chen Mobai replied with this sentence. Danju Academy, 47 people took the entrance exam for the Taoist Academy, and 233 people took the exam for the Imperial Academy. After reviewing the battle formations arranged by the people below, the red-robed master looked up at the representatives of the Taoist Academy who had all arrived in the conference room. The numbers are a bit awkward. How about we kick one out or bring one up? That way we can have 2 teams of each other. The representative of the Bushan Dao Academy made a statement that drew silent opposition from the crowd. Whether we kick one out or pick one out, there will be people who are dissatisfied. We need to maintain the most basic fairness and justice. I think we should stick to this number. The extra person should be the one with the highest score, who will get a bye and advance directly to the next round. Bayan Yiking from the Wuki Dao Academy spoke up, and his mature and prudent words drew nods of approval from most of the representatives of the academy. In that case, another problem arises. Shang King from Jumeng Taoist Academy checked the scores for Dangxia City this year, and pointed to the 2 people with the highest scores, Gong Xiangyu and Yan Feng, who had the same score. So who gets the bye? For a moment, the conference room fell silent again. Blue Ocean Sky, why don't you say a few words? Of the 4 major academies, only Lan Haitian had not yet spoken. Representatives from the 10 major academies, in such occasions, generally follow the lead of the 4 major schools. As soon as the red-robed master finished speaking, everyone's eyes fell on Lan Haitian. How about we have the people from the 4 major academies and the 10 major palaces team up and fight each other? As a result, Lan Haitian's words were hard for some people to accept. Wouldn't that be unfair to the 47 people who barely made it into the academy by meeting the minimum score? They worked so hard to get that qualification. It's just that when the fighting is mixed together, the more people there are and the more rounds there are, the easier it is to see the true level. End of this chapter. Chapter 100, One Matchup Chart. After listening to Lan Haitian's words, the representative from the Bushan Dao Academy frowned and raised a possibility. What should we do if the final first-place score is not high enough to get into our 4 major academies? Wouldn't that be even better? Then we'd have a legitimate reason not to admit a single one. Lan Haitian's words stunned everyone present, but then they all understood. The 4 major academies have extremely strict admission requirements, basically preferring to have fewer but better candidates each year. This has led many cultivators in society to criticize them for monopolizing the cultivation resources of the immortal sects while refusing to contribute to the public good, deeming them too selfish. The Immortal Affairs Hall, one of the 3 main halls of the immortal sect, is the highest authority in charge of the operation of all departments in the 36 grotto heavens and 72 blessed lands. It conducts a public opinion survey every 10 years. The public's criticism of the 4 major Taoist academies has been accumulating for over a century, and it's time to make some response. Therefore, this year, The head of the Immortal Affairs Hall specially invited the deans of the Taoist academies to set this competition as the theme for enrollment. The requirement is that, as long as a student wins the competition and meets the admission score requirements, the 4 major academies must not refuse the student's admission. Finally, to prevent college entrance exam migration, the Immortal sect issued a notice that students must complete at least 1 semester at a local academy in the Blessed Land before they can participate in the local entrance exam. The 4 major academies, giving face to the Immortal Affairs Hall Master, all expressed their agreement. However, the announcement was met with strong opposition from within the Taoist temple. Why is it that in our time, it took 2 or 3 million people from the entire Immortal sect to barely get a chance to study at one of the 4 major academies? How come it's so easy this year? The 4 major colleges will only admit a maximum of 49 students each year. There are fewer than 200 people in total. Truly 1 in 10,000 selected with immortal roots and Tao seeds. According to the requirements of the Immortal Affairs Palace Master, each blessed land must have at least 1 person, and the number may need to be doubled. It's not that the people in the Taoist Academy feel it's unfair. It's mainly that they feel that lowering the standards will tarnish the reputation of their academy in the future. You, the top student from some remote, impoverished place, actually got into one of the top 4 academies. Do you even have that kind of talent? If you want to enter the Taoist Academy, you should be like them, winning your way in from among millions of candidates with dignity. But the decision had already been made by the higher-ups, and even if the students had grievances, the representatives of the 4 major academies could only follow the orders of their superiors. Lan Haitian's proposal, however, gave the representatives of the 4 major academies a legitimate reason to refuse. Shang King of Jumeng Taoist Temple didn't care at all about this. With King Nu's heavenly spiritual root, their academy had already filled its quota of 1 student in Dangxia City ahead of schedule. That's good. If we follow the usual practice, these 47 people might not be qualified to enter the 4 major academies and would eventually have to enter the 10 major academies. So, taking the exam together will allow the representatives of the academies to better judge the talent and level of these students. The representative from Bushan Dao Academy nodded and said something that made the representatives from the academy turn pale. But they couldn't voice their opposition because they genuinely wanted to expand enrollment. So everyone's eyes turned to the red-robed master. The one in charge is still this person. I think it's feasible. Let's do it this way. The entrance exams for the Taoist Academy and the Imperial Academy will be combined, which will also save resources for my Danju Academy. The red-robed master made the decision, and the representatives of the Taoist Academy had no objections, nodding in unison. The document below immediately reset the pairing formula on the file, and then imported all the originally separate quotas of 47 people from the Taoist Academy and 233 people from the Imperial Academy. In a flash, a new match schedule was generated. Let's revise it again and then send it to all the universities. The competition is scheduled for 3 days from now. Since there are many participants in the first round, it will be conducted in multiple sessions. After reviewing it, the red-robed immortal added a few more points. For example, students from the same school should be given priority to avoid each other, and those with higher skill levels should be given priority to face those with lower skill levels, so as to avoid having those with higher skill levels meet in the early rounds and ensure the excitement of the last few rounds. After 2 more rounds of rearranging, the representatives from the Taoist Academy and the Imperial Academy were satisfied, so the matchmaking list was distributed to all high schools in Dangxia City. Classroom 203. He Jingshan skillfully turned on the projector, first displaying the entire huge matchmaking chart, then entered the keywords for 5th high school, instantly filtering out the matchmaking information for each student in the classroom. You all take notes. The first round consists of 140 matches, 20 matches a day, and it will take 7 days in total. Check which day your match is scheduled for. Chen Mobai looked up at his own and was lucky. It was the first day, and his opponent was from the 3rd high school. Mo Simon actually knew him. He was a genius at the 7th level of Kai, refining with dual spiritual roots, and she compared him to Song Zheng. Chen Mobai said, "Oh," and was very impressed with her analogy, which instantly made him understand the level of his opponent. Everyone is lucky and hasn't encountered any strong enemies. Only Chen Mobai is facing Kaio Xingwen, who is in the late stage of Kai refining. It might be a tough battle. Before He Jingxian arrived, he had looked at the match schedule and knew who each person's opponent would be. Seeing that everyone in the classroom was looking at him, Chen Mobai had no choice but to stop playing on his phone. Feeling the atmosphere was a bit stiff, Chen Mobai felt he needed to say something. Everyone must work hard. As the top student in our high school this time, I will take the lead and strive to defeat our opponents and promote the prestige of the 5th high school in Dangxia City. After hearing his words, Mo Simon turned her head away, pretending not to know him. Song Zheng was also a little shocked, not expecting Chen Mobai to say such an embarrassing thing. Ahem, Chen Mobai, I'm glad you have this ambition, but I've also heard about your opponent. It's said that he might be about to break through to the 8th level of Kai refining. When fighting on the arena, you should prioritize your own safety. Surrendering is not shameful. He Jingxian felt it was necessary to cool down these students. Although the entrance exam was important, there was no need to risk their lives. They had a long road ahead. Even within the 120 prefectures, there have been examples of people who have reached the nascent soul stage. Remember not to lose your temper and become irrational in the ring. After the principal talked at length, he mentioned a trick. The talismans used in combat can be changed, as long as they do not exceed the grade and quantity specified in the rules. If possible, you can change a set after each round of combat, so that your opponents will not be able to figure out your strength. Upon hearing this rule, Chen Mobai felt that there were both gains and losses. Mastering talismans takes time, and using your most familiar fighting technique will definitely be more effective than using an unfamiliar one. But the principal's words also make sense. If you encounter an evenly matched opponent and expose all your spells and talismans, even if you defeat them, the next opponent will definitely have talismans to counter them. At this point, changing the talisman is indeed a very good tactic, as it can disrupt the opponent's plans. However, this makes the battle of wits even more interesting. Should we first set up a set of rarely used talismans as a decoy to attract other people's attention in the early rounds? End of this chapter. Chapter 102, Striving for First Place. Buy 5 Quicksand Talismans. This Golden Light Talisman is also good. We can prepare 5 of them. Wind Blade Talisman, Wind Binding Talisman, and Wind Speed Talisman can actually be activated in combination. Not bad, I'll buy 5 of them. Fireball Talisman, Large Fireball Talisman, and Fire Dragon Talisman are also good to have 2 sets. On a whim, Chen Mobai opened the Immortal Gate network and purchased a number of very common combat talismans from several of the top-ranked talisman shops. Finally, he bought 10 water sword talismans that he had put in his shopping cart when he was broke, but had been reluctant to order, considering that he needed water to cast his ice spell. He also bought 5 water storage talismans. This talisman was invented by a genius of the immortal sect. Although it is only a first-grade low-level talisman, it can store 1 cubic meter of water. It is an indispensable talisman for exploring the wilderness and excavating ancient ruins. After placing the order, Chen Mobai saw that he only had a little over 3,000 merit points left in his bank card, and couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. It feels like no matter how many good deeds I do, it's never enough to cover my expenses. The more money you have, the more you feel this way. All right, everyone take this match schedule and go back to prepare. At this moment, He Jingxian distributed a stack of pre-printed and folded matchmaking charts to each student, and then left the classroom. Chen Mobai took the card handed to him by Song Zheng, who sat in front of him, put it in his bag and got up to leave. Hello. To everyone's surprise, Zhu Yuan walked over. What's up? Chen Mobai tilted his head, looking at the guy blocking the doorway. He wondered if this guy was going to challenge him for the #1 spot, and at what move should he defeat him when they made their move. Kaio Xingwen joined the army with me. I fought him 3 times and only won 2 of them. As soon as the entrance exam theme for the competition was announced, many people immediately thought that military training was the best way to improve. If Zhu Yuan and Shi Yuanqing were able to go to the army for training, the other senior high school students in Dangxia City would naturally have other ways to get in as well. Kaio Xingwen was one of Chen Mobai's rivals. Thank you for reminding me. After hearing Zhu Yuan's solemn words, Chen Mobai was a little surprised, but he still nodded and thanked him. "Chen Mobai, may I ask you something?" Just then Shi Jingjing, who was sitting in her seat, suddenly raised her hand and shouted, May I ask, has your personal profile information not been updated in a long time?" Shi Jingjing asked a question that surprised Chen Mobai. "What do you mean by that?" Chen Mobai was a little confused, but Shi Jingjing took out her phone and opened a website in front of him. Odds website. This magical contest in Dangxia City attracted many gamblers who placed bets, and they collected information on all the students who participated in the magical contest at the Taoist Academy. I've been bored these past few days, so I went through everyone's information and found that your cultivation level is still marked as Kai Refining Level 6. I checked the match schedule again. Basically, the arrangement of the first few rounds avoided infighting between students of higher levels. It must have been a deliberate condition set up by the higher-ups to make the last few rounds more exciting. You are considered to be at the 6th level of Kai Refining, which is the lowest level to participate in this battle. Therefore, during the automatic ranking, you were assigned to Kaio Xingwen, with the aim of ensuring that he, a genius at the 7th level of Kai Refining, is promoted. After hearing Shi Jingjing's words, all the students in the class, including Mo Simon, who were at the 6th level of Kai Refining, couldn't help but lower their heads in shame. Chen Mobai opened his personal panel on his phone. It's been updated. It's now at the 7th level of Kai Refining. Then you didn't send it to the homeroom teacher, did you? Shi Jingjing asked again. Chen Mobai thought about it and realized it was true. The time between his breakthrough from the 5th level of Kai Refining to the 6th level, and then from the 6th level to the 7th level, was too short. So, to avoid being questioned by his homeroom teacher, he had never sent the updated personal panel to Chai Daeyun. The grades of students at every school are publicly available, and the odds website must have found this information. I see. After listening to Shi Jingjing's advice, Chen Mobai suddenly understood. It was precisely because of this reason that a duel between two Kai Refining Stage 7 cultivators occurred in the first round. Apart from those two, the other 139 matches were all between late-stage Kai Refining players and mid-stage Kai Refining players. You could have easily made it to the second round, but now you might be eliminated in the first round. Shi Jingjing shook her finger at Chen Mobai, looking regretful. "Thank you for reminding me." Chen Mobai didn't say much, he just thanked her. At this moment, many people in the classroom had gathered around Shi Jingjing, asking her for the website address of the odds website. "You can only look, you can't place bets, or you'll be disqualified from the entrance exam." Shi Jingjing immediately reminded him, which instantly dampened Chen Mobai's enthusiasm, who had originally planned to bet on himself to win. However, he still asked for the website address and added Shi Jingjing as a friend. This student's way of thinking is a bit unconventional. Perhaps we can keep in touch more in the future. After leaving school, Chen Mobai arrived at the alchemy room rented by King Nu. "Give." A box half full of first-grade Kai replenishing water was handed to Chen Mobai by King Nu. He opened it and counted the contents. There were 22 vials. 4 portions of medicinal herbs have been used, and there is still 1 pool of medicinal liquid being extracted. It can be mixed with spiritual essence the day after tomorrow, and there should be about 7 more tubes. "Thanks for your hard work." Chen Mobai thanked King Nu. A single pool of top-grade Kai replenishing spiritual water can only be mixed into 10 tubes. During the 10 days that King Nu fought against the demonic beasts, she did not rest at all, and Chen Mobai could sense that she was slightly tired. "It's all right. I owe it all to the medicinal herbs you provided. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to break through my cultivation level." You've mastered divine sense." Chen Mobai did not investigate King Nu's cultivation level, but to break through to the 7th level of Kai Refining, one must first cultivate divine sense. "Yes, I grasped the divine sense after waking up this morning, but my spiritual power is not enough, so I am still at the 6th level of Kai Refining." "Congratulations. Take 2 portions of Kai replenishing spiritual water ingredients and mix them with some mid-grade first-tier herbs for your own use. Consider it a gift from me." King Nu shook her head upon hearing this. "I'm already very satisfied that you can provide me with medicinal herbs to practice and improve my alchemy skills. Besides, I'll be going to Jumeng Academy next semester, which is located in a fifth-order spiritual vein. There's no shortage of spiritual energy there, so there's no need for me to waste your medicinal herbs. Chen Mobai listened to King Nu's words and felt that they made a lot of sense, so he didn't say anything more. However, under the pretext of celebrating King Nu's breakthrough, the two went out for a meal of grilled fish. He didn't bring any seafood from the heavenly river realm this time, so the taste was just average, but the two of them still enjoyed their meal. When they finished eating and were about to part, King Nu suddenly clenched her right fist, raised it, and said something to Chen Mobai. "Good luck on your entrance exam. Okay, I'll try my best to get first place in the exam so I can go to Jumeng Taoist Academy with you." End of this chapter. Chapter 103. The situation is excellent. After returning home, Chen Mobai had another meal with his mother, Tang Pankui, and then, amidst her nagging, went back to his room. It shimmered with silver light. They returned to the celestial river realm once again. He carefully emerged from the hole he had dug and breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that the wooden house was still there. After confirming that the monsters had not yet reached the island, Chen Mobai changed his clothes and returned to the group. "How are you feeling? Do you feel uncomfortable going back to rest?" When Kai Rui saw him return, he laughed and walked over to pat him on the shoulder. "No, how could that be? Last time I took senior brother Wang's ashes back and rested for a day, I was lying in bed with my eyes closed and all I could see were images of myself fighting against the monsters here. I couldn't rest at all." Hearing this, Chen Mobai shook his head. He was resting at his own home on Earth Origin Star and had no worries about being attacked by demonic beasts. "What's the situation?" "Better than ever before." The one who said these words was Wang Yuanwu. Chen Mobai was stunned when he saw him. One of his hands was tied and hung around his neck. "Last night those beasts came to ambush us. Although we notified Uncle Ning in time, one of his hands was still severed, but it has been reattached with a regeneration talisman." Upon hearing this, Chen Mobai immediately looked around and discovered that 3 more people were missing from the group. "I asked around and found out that one person had died, and 2 others were seriously injured and had left the group. This shows that last night's battle must have been exceptionally fierce. If only I were here." Chen Mobai felt a little guilty. "Don't worry, we're about to enter the final stage, and there won't be any more casualties." At this moment, Kai Rui understood Chen Mobai's feelings and patted him on the shoulder. On a rock not far away, Shi Pengyi also raised his hand to greet him. Feeling slightly relieved, Chen Mobai was still a little confused by Kai Rui's words. Is it about to end? Has the Shenmu sect received reinforcements again? Ancestor Fu personally rushed to Yunming's and moved to Fengyuwu. He ordered our foundation establishment masters from Shenmu sect stationed there to withdraw. 2 of them were teleported to Qingguang Island. Now the situation here is at least stable. Upon hearing this, Chen Mobai was overjoyed. Without realizing it, he had already come to regard himself as a part of Qingguang Island. Next, we'll just have to wait for when Ancestor Fu and True Man Nujiang will be free to sweep through the outer area of Yunmeng's. Although the Shenmu sect and Jingguang Cliff separated from the 5 Elements sect, the peace agreement stipulated that when the Yunmeng marsh monsters showed unusual activity, both sects would still respond to the call and help suppress the seal left by the Hunyuan ancestor. For this reason, the Shenmu sect sends a group of foundation establishment cultivators to Fengyuwu every 10 years. Of course, all the spoils from their hunting of monsters belong to them. The markets like Qingguang Island were initially established to handle the spoils obtained by these foundation establishment cultivators from hunting monsters deep in the Yunmeng marsh. Later, as the sect's 2 patriarchs discovered how profitable it was, they began to pay even more attention to it. This time, the Shenmu sect's 6 island markets in Yunmeng's were besieged by demonic beasts, and 2 of them were unable to withstand the attack and have already fallen. On Qingguang Island, because it is located on the outermost edge and is relatively close to the mainland, not many demonic beasts came. In addition, Zhang Deming handled the situation well, so the losses were minimal. "I'll keep watch tonight," Chen Mobai volunteered, and Wang Yuanwu did not refuse, since it was Kai Rui's team's turn anyway. It seems he's become addicted to sneak attacks. That night, a flock of black plague birds indeed took advantage of the darkness and flew towards this place from the dark clouds. However, with the protection they had, Chen Mobai and his group cooperated well and solidified their defenses. In addition, Wang Yuanwu did not hesitate to have his junior brother Liu extract the earth's spiritual energy and activate the heavenly wood divine light again, finally waiting for the arrival of the two foundation establishment cultivators. One was Ning Leshan from Jin Guangya, and the other was Shenmu Zompingbei who came from Fengyuwu. The former is a sword cultivator, while the latter has been hunting demonic beasts for many years and is extremely ruthless. None of the Black Plague birds managed to escape. They all perished on this cliff. Even the two foundation establishment cultivators weren't satisfied, so they went off the island and fought fiercely with the two second-tier bird kings. However, outside was the bird king's domain. They commanded their flock and formed a simple battle formation, which the two foundation establishment cultivators were unable to break through. Instead, they were trapped. Finally, as dawn broke, the two foundation establishment cultivators, having exhausted their spiritual energy, ordered 4 beams of heavenly wood divine light to be launched from the west bank, shattering the battle formation controlled by the two second-tier bird kings, before they could safely retreat. Why haven't these beasts retreated yet? After the two foundation establishment cultivators returned, they greeted each other and flew back to the center of the island. Wang Yuanwu, however, was a little puzzled, standing on the shore looking at the desolate reef where only a quarter of the original Black Plague bird flock remained. Perhaps he was under orders. The order among monsters is very primitive. Lower-ranking monsters obey higher-ranking monsters. Perhaps we should still be cautious and not make a mistake at the last minute, lest these beasts storm the island. Wang Yuanwu, dragging his arm which had just been reattached and was bleeding again from the intense battle, sat down under the spirit tree and began to practice breathing exercises. With manager Wang's cultivation level, isn't he a true disciple of your Shenmu sect? Chen Mobai and Kai Rui went to the side to drink and chat. After listening, the latter nodded and then shook his head. Senior brother Wang was also a true disciple 20 years ago, but he failed to establish his foundation and stepped down from his position. He is still paying off the contribution points for that foundation establishment pill. Chen Mobai stared wide-eyed in disbelief. What's the big deal? Do you think every true disciple can gather 10,000 contribution points to exchange for a foundation establishment pill? They either rely on gifts from elders or borrow from fellow disciples. Kai Rui was already very open with Chen Mobai, and after a couple of drinks, he told him about exchanging the foundation establishment pills for the Divine Wood sect. The sect actually supports this point. After all, the longer the foundation establishment pill is stored, the more of its medicinal power is lost. Even the most gifted disciple cannot accumulate 10,000 contribution points in just 10 years. Therefore, in order to avoid wasting foundation establishment pills, the sect allows elders to give contribution points, or peers to lend or borrow them from each other. Generally speaking, as long as you have good character and are a true disciple, we are willing to lend you our services. After all, if the senior brother we lend you his services to successfully establish his foundation, that would be a great favor. If we need to borrow contribution points to exchange for foundation-building pills in the future, he would have to empty his pocket to help us out. The contribution points a foundation establishment cultivator can complete for sect missions are at least 10 times higher than those for a Kai refining cultivator. If you're lucky enough to lend contribution points to 2 or 3 senior disciples who have successfully established their foundation, you'll basically be able to borrow enough contribution points from them to exchange for foundation establishment pills. End of this chapter. Chapter 104 Fumo. Kai Rui's words made Chen Mobai even more interested in joining the Shenmu sect. For the next 2 days, there were only sporadic attacks from the Black Plague birds. Chen Mobai's team, consisting of the elite, suffered no further casualties. Manager Wang, now that the battle situation has basically stabilized, I won't be coming over anymore. After essentially getting 10 spirit stones for free, Chen Mobai decided to leave. Wang Yuanwu glanced at him with some surprise. This kind of opportunity to easily obtain spirit stones without going through a battle would have been something that other rogue cultivators would have shamelessly stayed for. Some rogue cultivators who had retreated during the most intense battles were now applying to rejoin. Fellow Taoist Chen is very righteous, but my Shenmu sect is not short of spirit stones. If you feel bad about leaving, there is no need to do so. Before Wang Yuanwu could speak, Kai Rui spoke up. During this period, his relationship with Chen Mobai has become better and better, and he has basically regarded the latter as the junior brother to be recruited by the Shenmu sect in the next batch. This is mainly because I sensed an opportunity for a breakthrough during this short period of combat, and I didn't want to miss it. Chen Mobai could only smile wryly and make up an excuse. If he could, he would also like to kill monsters here every day and easily earn spirit stones. But tomorrow I have to go to Danju Academy to participate in the magical duel, which is a major event in my life, and I absolutely cannot be late. That is indeed more important. Using his breakthrough in cultivation as an excuse, neither Wang Yuanwu nor Kai Rui wanted to keep him. The former took out a roster from his storage bag, crossed out Chen Mobai's name on it, and then gave him a certificate. Kai Rui pulled Chen Mobai aside and gave him a book of talisman-making notes that he had compiled. Since you have decided to cultivate the longevity scripture and the crimson flame sword technique, you can familiarize yourself with the crafting method of the crimson flame sword talisman in advance. As long as you can master this talisman, any senior master will take you into their sect. Of course, if anyone asks you, just say that you bought this talisman crafting notebook outside. Don't say that I gave it to you. Because the 5 Elements sect has 5 lineages, in order to recruit mortals with spiritual roots in the eastern wilderness, it spread many of its Kai cultivation techniques and basic spells to the secular dynasties. In this way, these people who emerged would eventually become disciples of the 5 Elements sect, since they were practicing its techniques. Therefore, there are also many 5 Elements sect techniques and talismans for sale in Nangxi Market. Old man, he believed that the Blackwater skill in Chen Mobai's hands had this origin. Thank you, senior brother Kai. The word senior brother made Kai Rui burst into laughter. Junior brother Chen. He reached out and patted Chen Mobai's shoulder forcefully. It shimmered with silver light. Chen Mobai returned home and looked at the crudely bound and poorly printed notes on the crafting of the crimson flame sword talisman in his hand, feeling a warm feeling in his heart. This heavenly river realm is not entirely filled with deceit and intrigue. People like Wang Yuanwu and Kai Rui from the Shenmu sect, and even Kai Hu at the beginning, all seem to be flesh and blood cultivators with resilient personalities after getting to know them. Of course, it's also possible that the environment for independent cultivators is too harsh, and they are surrounded by wolves who want to plunder their cultivation resources, which makes independent cultivators outside the major sects of the Heavenly River realm so cruel. If they could cultivate and improve peacefully, most cultivators would definitely prefer to stay in their caves and avoid causing trouble. Sitting at his desk, Chen Mobai carefully read through the notes on crafting the Crimson Flame Sword Talisman. To create this sword talisman, the talisman maker needs to cultivate the Crimson Flame Sword technique in order to create Crimson Flame Sword Kai that can be sealed into the talisman paper. Of course, the notes also mention that the senior cultivators of the Divine Wood sect had tried to see if they could use the same type of fire attribute spiritual energy sword energy to achieve the same effect. Later it was proven that this was possible. However, some strokes and lines need to be adjusted to adapt to the balance between sword energy and talisman paper. The Crimson Flame Sword Talisman cannot be obtained overnight. You need to start with the first-tier mid-grade Crimson Fire Talisman and Sword Kai Talisman. Then combine the 2 talismans to become the first-tier high-grade Crimson Flame Sword Talisman, and then the second Sword Talisman and third Sword Talisman. However, Kai Rui himself only refined 1 Sword Talisman. He tried making the 2 Sword Talismans for several years, succeeding only twice, and then he got too lazy to continue. After all, the demand for the 1 Sword Talisman is greater, and it can be sold for a better price. Kai Rui did try to refine the 3 Swords Talisman, but after failing 20 or 30 times, he simply couldn't afford to invest anymore. After all, although the 3 Swords Talisman is still a first-tier superior grade, it is actually already within the scope of a second-tier talisman maker. To increase the success rate, many talisman makers directly use second-tier talisman paper and ink. Kai Rui is only at the 8th level of Kai refining, so he can't afford to invest in that. Chen Mobai immediately opened the Immortal Gate network and checked the prices of the relevant items. A first-tier superior talisman costs an average of 80 merit points per piece, while a second-tier one costs an average of 500 merit points. As for the ink used for talismans, it depends on the type. Since the ink used for each talisman is basically different, most of them need to be mixed by oneself after reaching the second level. Some common second-tier talisman inks can be industrialized, but the price is still a bit high, 1,000 merit points for a small bottle. Chen Mobai then looked at the dozen or so pages in Kai Rui's notes about mixing ink. The pages were full of his complaints, saying that he wasted 90% of his time refining talismans on mixing ink. Then he looked at the specific steps for mixing the ink. The materials are fine. They are produced in the giant wood ridge area, and it's a type of cinnabar called red vermilion. However, this cinnabar is exceptionally hard, requiring a Kai refining cultivator to grind it for 3 days and 3 nights using special grinding tools before it can be ground into a usable fine powder. After grinding, a kind of spirit yellow glue extracted from spirit wood needs to be added, along with a certain proportion of spirit water to blend the two together, and then slowly simmered in a special boiler over low heat. This small fire requires a type of spirit wood with a gentle flame, which is also an investment. Once the ink in the boiler has boiled down to a point where it no longer flows, it must be taken out and air-dried. This process takes another 3 days and 3 nights. It can only be removed after the talisman ink has completely solidified. Among these, the upper layer of the rune ink block will be yellowish, the bottom layer will be purplish, and only the bright red layer in the middle is the second-tier rune ink. After separating the 3 types of cinnabar, there is a final step of filtration, which requires filtering out the impurities in the talisman ink. The time required depends on the previous grinding and the quality of the raw materials. When Kai Rui first made ink, due to incorrect techniques, he filtered it for a whole month but still could not meet the requirements, and in the end, he had to scrap the ink. No wonder he only complained about the ink-making process in this notebook. To increase the success rate of crafting the 3 swords talisman, it is best to use second-tier bright red talisman ink. Of course, if one is skilled, even cinnabar with a yellowish or purplish tint can be successfully refined. Chen Mobai found the steps troublesome, but he had his own way of doing it. End of this chapter. Chapter 105, The First Day of the Battle. Chen Mobai picked up his phone and made a call. Mom, what's the current selling price of top-grade first-tier talisman paper at your factory? 35 merit points for 1 card. What, you want to earn some pocket money again? You need to focus on the entrance exam right now, don't get distracted. If you need money, just tell me. Although the family is struggling right now, and we still owe the bank a loan for your dad's foundation building. But upon hearing this, Chen Mobai quickly asked the question he most wanted to ask, interrupting his mother's upcoming lecture. Which spirit machinery manufacturer did you order the machine in your workshop that makes the talisman ink? I see that as long as you put the raw materials in, the talisman ink that comes out is not only clean and neat, but also has a uniform color and perfect quality. Zhu Gong's 6th factory, this machine isn't cheap. It costs a full 200,000 yuan. They only managed to order it because of our boss's connections. After listening to Tang Pengqui's long explanation, Chen Mobai finally managed to hang up the phone. 200,000 merits for 1 unit. That's way too expensive. So he checked the Xianmen website again to see if there were any alternatives. He actually found a few vendors who make custom machines in this area. He inquired about their prices through pop-up windows in the back end. The prices varied, but the cheapest one was 100,000 yuan in merit before they would accept the order. Chen Mobai glanced at his account balance and clicked the X in frustration. However, he immediately thought of the wooden spirit talisman shop where he often bought them. The shop was able to produce so many talismans in such a short time, so it's impossible that they made the talisman ink by hand. But after several conversations with the shopkeeper, I found that he wasn't a wealthy person either. So how did he solve this problem? After he typed out a message and sent it, the The shopkeeper at the wood spirit talisman shop replied to him immediately. After all, they are big customers. He sent me several links. Chen Mobai clicked on the first one and found it was a small shredder. The shopkeeper said he bought this kind of machine to crush cinnabar. The cheapest model only costs 3,000 Shanggong, but it can only crush particles to a fineness of 100 mesh at most. However, it's basically enough for refining first-tier talismans. Since Chen Mobai didn't know the fineness of the Danju granules from the Shenmu sect, he simply added them to his shopping cart. Clicking on each link leads to a small temperature pot for brewing talisman ink, a spiritual energy jar for starting a fire, a filter and a glass bottle, and finally, a standard small aluminum tube used on Earthstar to hold semi-solid talisman ink. You can't afford a large machine that costs 200,000 yuan and integrates all functions. But if you break down all the functions, you only need to invest less than 10,000 good deeds. Chen Mobai sent the shopkeeper a thumbs-up emoji and then placed an order for some talismans from his shop. Since he didn't have much money left in his account, Chen Mobai could only put the items the shopkeeper had recommended into his shopping cart. Anyway, he's mainly focused on the entrance exam now. I'll practice making talismans slowly after I go to university. When I got downstairs, there were several packages on the coffee table. He had purchased Quicksand Talisman, Golden Light Talisman, and Wind Blade Talisman. And after opening them one by one, he selected a few and put them in his pocket. He went out and walked to the training gym where he had previously spent time with Yan Bingxuan. He opened a spell field for an hour to practice, used one of all the talismans, and left satisfied after confirming their feel and function. Then he took the bus to Danju Academy to check it out. That's quite spectacular. Danju Academy is located in Dangxia Mountain, where there are towering peaks and clusters of peaks that resemble fortresses. Strange rocks, stone bridges, and stone caves of all shapes and sizes stand on the earth. As far as the eye can see, the red sandstone and conglomerate layers rise into the clouds, and their arena for combat is atop these towering mountain peaks. After taking a special cable car to the summit, Chen Mobai looked down at the vast scenery and couldn't help but feel a sense of superiority. This way, at this moment at a snack shop on the summit, Chan Si, who had been waiting, waved to Chen Mobai, who had just arrived. "Hello, Professor Chan." Chen Mobai had contacted Chan Si before coming here. The latter had helped her a lot and even bought her some spirit-boosting powder, which was her first source of startup capital. She had been looking for an opportunity to thank him properly. "Since I happen to be here today, I plan to treat her to a meal." "Is this the student you were talking about?" Beside Chansey was a senior student with a very generous smile. After the introduction, Chen Mobai learned that she was the one who bought the spirit-boosting powder, named Shen Huangxiu. So the wealthy female student treated him to the meal. They had heard that he had taken the entrance exam for the Taoist Academy, and both girls said they would come to cheer him on. "Goodbye, Teacher Chan and Senior Sister Shen." After getting a free meal and being led around all the arenas by the two women to scout them out, Chen Mobai was about to leave when the two women called him back. "You have a magical duel tomorrow, so don't go home. Get some rest here tonight so you won't have to travel all day tomorrow." "Yes, there are plenty of hotels near the school gate. I'll pay for the rooms. So many students are coming tomorrow and there might be traffic jams in Dangxia City. If you're late and get penalized, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." After listening to what Chan Si and Shen Huangxiu said, Chen Mobai felt that it made a lot of sense. However, he dared not let Shen Huangxiu pay for a hotel room for him. When the two women saw him refuse so firmly, they couldn't help but smile. After telling him to keep going, they left together. Even with Chen Mobai's current state of mind, he felt somewhat anxious and uncertain that night. In the immortal sect, having access to a good university is the greatest opportunity to change one's destiny. He woke up at 4 in the morning and rearranged the talismans in his bag again, finally choosing the set he was most confident in. After all, according to Zhu Yuan and the others, Kaio Xingwen is quite capable. If you accidentally capsize in a ditch, there will be no chance for a rematch. A first grade, superior quality Crimson Flame Sword Talisman. First tier, mid-grade Azure Arrow Talisman and Water Sword Talisman. Tier 1 low-grade Entangling Talisman, Wooden Shield Talisman, Wooden Prison Talisman, Water Storage Talisman. Before dawn, Chen Mobai ate a bowl of hot and sour noodles at the school gate. then came to his arena and sat on a long stone bench on the edge of the peak, watching the clouds drift by and the sun rise in the east, shining brightly. Not only him, but several earlier students were also restless, pacing back and forth. He would take out the talismans he had prepared and examine them again. Then he would change 2 more and reassemble a set. That kind of mentality won't work. Once you step into the ring, you'll just be handing your opponent a free pass. Seeing these people, Chen Mobai could only shake his head inwardly. He felt he could take on 10 of them. "Oh, you're here so early." The speaker was Shi Jingjing from the same school, and next to her was Cao Yaling, who was also fighting on the stage. It seemed they had stayed here last night as well, and upon seeing Chen Mobai sitting motionless, they walked over hand in hand. "Don't be too nervous, just show your composure. It's okay to lose after all. Your opponent is Caio Xingwen, whose odds are in the top 100. There are only 280 people in total." Shi Jingjing's words prompted Chen Mobai to retort. End of this chapter. Chapter 106, 1 minute. "After you're done, wait for me here. I'll come find you." After greeting Chen Mobai, Shi Jingjing spoke to Cao Yaling, who nodded gently and stood quietly in place. "She doesn't talk much. If you're eliminated early, can you wait until she finishes?" After Shi Jingjing left, she suddenly came to Chen Mobai's side, pointed at Cao Yaling, and asked her to do something. "Okay." Chen Mobai readily agreed. After all, as the top scorer in this college entrance examination at Xianmen 5th High School, he naturally considered himself their team leader. It is their duty to take care of their teammates. Before long, groups of 2 or 3 students reached the summit. Chen Mobai saw his opponent. The odds website provided by Shi Jingjing had photos and information about everyone, which he looked up and memorized. Very strong blood and energy. Cao Yaling had somehow walked up to Chen Mobai's side and also saw Caio Xingwen. She raised her hand to adjust her glasses, and her eyes behind the lenses sparkled as if she had seen something. She gave a gentle hint. "Aren't you usually quiet? If she were here, I wouldn't say anything." Upon hearing this, Chen Mobai looked the girl, who wore round-framed glasses and appeared quite delicate and quiet, up and down, feeling utterly bewildered. The meridians in 3 of his right fingers are 30% wider than the other 2, which may indicate that he has practiced a spell similar to Spirit Pill. Cao Yaling continued speaking to herself, raising her right hand and extending her 3 slender, fair fingers to Chen Mobai. "Thanks." After a long silence, Chen Mobai managed to utter 2 words to this inexplicable female classmate. Although he felt he could easily defeat Caio Xingwen even without this intelligence, Cao Yaling had meant well, so he could only express his gratitude. "My spiritual eyes are not yet fully developed, so I can only see this much." "That's enough. It seems Shi Jingjing has also cultivated your spiritual eye." "Yes, my master is also her father. We have similar spiritual roots and cultivate the same techniques. So between the 2 of you, whose spiritual eye is more powerful?" Cao Yaling hesitated for a moment, then shook her head without giving a direct answer. However, Chen Mobai already knew the answer. She was probably the more capable one. It turned out that she was the most capable female student in this year's class at the 5th High School of the Immortal Sect. "The 2 students whose names I am about to call out, please come up to the stage." Just then, a cultivator dressed in the uniform of a teacher from Danju Academy flew to the newly cleared stone arena at the center of the peak. Holding a match schedule for the day, he spoke softly, yet his voice clearly reached the ears of all the students and onlookers on the peak. "I'm going up now. I'll be right down, you just stay here." Chen Mobai stood up from the long stone bench. The first match on this stage was between him and Caio Xingwen. He originally planned to finish quickly, because he had made an appointment with Chan Si and Shen Huangxiu yesterday to explore Danju Academy, and then treat them to lunch to thank them properly. However, since he had promised Shi Jingjing to take care of Cao Yaling, he, as the leader of the 5th High School of the Immortal Sect, would not go back on his word. The main problem is that neither Chan Si nor Shen Huangxiu have arrived yet. It's a pity we didn't get to see his heroic figure quickly defeating his opponent. Chen Mobai from the 5th High School, Caio Xingwen from the 3rd High School. Just then, the teacher from Danju Academy on the arena called out the names of the 2 opponents in the first match. The 2 immediately used a leaping technique to land on the platform and exchanged a glance. "The rules are all clear, right? Only spells and a specified number of talismans of a certain rank are allowed. After the referee finished speaking, Chen Mobai and Kaio Xingwen both nodded slightly. The latter had a square face, a buzz cut, and a tall, upright posture with a sharp and capable demeanor, making him appear very powerful. 7th level of Kai refining against 6th level of Kai refining, a crushing defeat. It's more like a welfare bureau. This first event is just to warm things up. In today's arena, Kaio Xingwen's strength is estimated to be among the top 5. Luckily, I wasn't the one who got selected. Kaio Xingwen got in through a special admission process. Despite the distracting noises around him, Kaio Xingwen couldn't help but smile, even though he had been tempered in the army. Today, he is the protagonist. He extended his right thumb and little finger, following the pre-designed tactics. He first used his 2 weakest spirit orbs to test the effectiveness of his opponent's talismans. Once his opponent's trump cards were fully exposed, he would then use his 3 strongest spirit orbs to finish them off in one strike. My opponent in the first round is only at the 6th level of Kai refining. I'm afraid he can't even make me use a talisman. Full of confidence, Kaio Xingwen made his move. 1 minute later, everyone in the audience gaped, their faces filled with disbelief. That's it. Or was he trained in the military? Chen Mobai looked at his unconscious opponent and couldn't help but shake his head. He then turned to look at the referee, who had just stepped off the stage and hadn't even had a chance to sit down and have a drink of water. Yes, Chen Mobai won the first round. The teacher flew onto the stage, checked that Kaio Xingwen had indeed lost his fighting ability and was unconscious, and announced the result very decisively. After bowing to the teacher, Chen Mobai landed below the arena, ignoring the shocked gazes of hundreds of people around him, and leisurely walked to the long stone bench where he had been sitting. Cao Yaling was indeed very obedient. She listened to him and stood still without moving an inch. Of course, the main reason is that he was too fast. Cao Yaling parted her cherry lips slightly, wanting to say something, but she didn't know how to say it. If I remember correctly, you are in the 3rd match and it will be your turn soon. Have you observed your opponent? What tricks did your spiritual eye see? I am quite good at combat, so tell me and I can help you devise a strategy. Chen Mobai felt that, as the team leader, he not only had to take care of his classmates off the field, but also needed to leverage his experience gained from his advanced studies in the Tianhe realm in terms of combat techniques and actual fighting. No need. He's just an ordinary person at the 6th level of Kai refining. My chances of winning are 98%. Cao Yaling adjusted her glasses, glanced at a boy with a bowl cut not far away, and spoke calmly but with great confidence. All right then, I hope that all of our students can advance in the first round, so as not to let down our alma mater. Chen Mobai's words made Cao Yaling roll her eyes. This guy is so young. Where did he learn his bureaucratic manners from? Half an hour later, Shi Jingjing arrived. Why are you so slow? I had things to do this morning. Chen Mobai was somewhat dissatisfied with Shi Jingjing's speed. You were eliminated quickly, of course. My opponent somehow got hold of a set of tortoise shield talismans and defended against me for a full 10 minutes, almost forcing me to use a first-grade high-quality talisman. Chen Mobai was too lazy to refute, because Chan Si and senior sister Fu had just sent him a message saying they would be arriving soon. I'm returning the person to you as is. I have to go now. End of this chapter. Chapter 107, Rising to Fame. What did you say? At the summit, after hearing about Chen Mobai's achievements, Shi Jingjing's eyes widened, and she screamed in disbelief. He took care of Kaio Xingwen in a minute. You're not under some kind of illusion, are you? Cao Yaling knew Shi Jingjing wouldn't believe it. If she hadn't witnessed it with her own eyes, she certainly wouldn't have believed it either. You should know that even someone like her, at the 8th level of Kai refining, couldn't defeat Kaio Xingwen within a minute. It's likely that only someone like Gong Xiangyu, who is at the 9th level of Kai refining, and who uses powerful talismans or spells, could achieve this. A video has been uploaded. Take a look for yourself. Cao Yaling opened the odds website, where one duel video after another had been uploaded according to the matchup schedule. She selected the scene featuring Chen Mobai and Kaio Xingwen, clicked the small triangle button between their profile pictures, and immediately opened a short video. It's really short, just 1 minute. Shi Jingjing, immediately came over to take a look. After the referee stepped down from the stage, Kyo Xingwen first used 2 spirit pills to test Chen Mobai, who routinely used the leap technique to move his body and dodge the attack. However, this step fell into Kyo Xingwen's calculations. He predicted the landing point of Chen Mobai's leap technique, and 3 dazzling lights burst forth. An even more powerful spirit orb shot out from the tips of his 3 fingers, accurately calculating all the landing points where Chen Mobai could dodge and move. Isn't that the end of it? Just as Shi Jingjing was thinking this, a wooden shield talisman lit up in Chen Mobai's hand. Yes, that was handled well. Just as Shi Jingjing was making this assessment, Chen Mobai threw out another talisman with even greater spiritual power. The water shimmered like waves, but in an instant it condensed into a sword, slashing towards Kyo Xingwen. Could a mid-grade first-tier, water sword talisman really defeat an opponent like that? While Shi Jingjing was puzzled, Kyo Xingwen confidently used an earth shield talisman. With just this first-grade low-level defensive talisman, he blocked the water sword talisman that Chen Mobai seemed to have thrown out in a panic. Then Kyo Xingwen spread his right hand, unleashing 5 spiritual orbs that enveloped Chen Mobai, who was charging towards him. The latter was forced to halt his advance and dodge the orb attacks by moving left and right. Just as one of the spirit pills was about to touch Chen Mobai, Kyo Xingwen suddenly lost consciousness and collapsed. Shi Jingjing immediately pulled back the video, turned on 0.5x speed, and watched it 3 times in a row. She even used her spiritual eyes before she finally saw a clue. The water sword talisman that had been blocked by the earth shield talisman turned into a stream of clear water and landed at Kyo Xingwen's feet. When he used the spirit pill, this stream of clear water seemed to possess a spirit, flowing like a spirit snake from the edge of the earth shield that rose from the stone platform at his feet to his back, and up to the back of Kyo Xingwen's forehead. Then a transparent water stick slammed down heavily. Kyo Xingwen was caught completely off guard and was knocked unconscious by the blow. Water control. Shi Jingjing hesitated, while Cao Yaling nodded gently. The water sword talisman was just a decoy. Kyo Xingwen thought he had blocked this mid-grade first-level attack talisman and focused all his attention on the first-grade high-level talisman that Chen Mobai might take out. However, he did not expect that the water sword of the water sword talisman was an illusion, and the water after the water sword dissipated was the real attack. Since we can use talismans, we've all put all our eggs in one basket. But we've forgotten that the main purpose of a magic duel is to test our ability to use spells flexibly. Although Chen Mobai looks ordinary, he has grasped the key to this. With a simple water control technique, combined with a water sword talisman and appropriate tactics, he can easily defeat the powerful opponent Kyo Xingwen. Cao Yaling witnessed Chen Mobai devise tactics step by step, leading Kyo Xingwen to mistakenly believe that he had the overall situation under control, before defeating his opponent with the simplest water control technique. Before Shi Jingjing arrived, she had already done a lot of analysis in her mind about this intricately planned, interconnected, and intricately plotted duel. But the more he analyzed it, the more amazed he became by Chen Mobai. So this is how simple a battle of wits can be. There's no need for powerful talismans or advanced spells. All you need is the most effective spell at the right moment to easily defeat a seemingly invincible opponent. Where did this guy go? Shi Jingjing looked up and asked. I heard that I made an appointment to have lunch with Professor Chan. Let's go, let's latch onto his coattails. No, let's freeload a meal. Before Cao Yaling could react, Shi Jingjing had already pulled her in the direction Chen Mobai had left, while also sending him a message. Previously, Chen Mobai and she became friends because Chen Mobai wanted to ask her for odds information. However, Chen Mobai didn't seem to be playing on his phone and ignored her. Just as Shi Jingjing was about to give up, she saw that Teacher Chan was calling. Why are you here? When Chen Mobai returned from the snack street of Danju Academy after ordering 5 side dishes, he noticed many students already seated. Besides the familiar Song Zhang and Mo Simon, there are also Zhu Yuan, Shi Yuanqing, and others. Basically, most of the students from their school were present. I am your teacher. Since you have come to Danju Academy to take the entrance exam, as the host, I naturally want to welcome you and give you a proper welcome. That's why I called everyone. Chan Si smiled and sat down at the corner of the long table, waved to the owner, and ordered 2 more tables of dishes. Well, it seems I can't ask them to come again. Chen Mobai lamented why it was so difficult for him to invite Chan Si to dinner. There will always be a chance. You've already made it to the next round, haven't you? Huh, how did you know? According to the odds, I only have a 1% chance of winning against Kaio Xingwen, don't I? After Chen Mobai met with Chan Si and senior sister Fu, he hadn't yet mentioned his results in the magical duel. I thought you were eliminated, and I was afraid of touching on your sad memories, so I didn't ask you about it. But now your battle video is going viral on the Danxia City's online forum. Shen Huangxiu looked at Chen Mobai with a gleam in her eyes. Upon hearing this, the latter immediately took out his phone and entered the forum. A shocking upset. A Kai Refining Level 7 cultivator was defeated by a Kai Refining Level 6 cultivator, a level far exceeding their own level. The fighting art of the top student in the college entrance examination of the 5th high school of the immortal sect. A simple water control technique is all it takes to change the course of the battle. Is it that the 3rd high school is too weak, or the 5th high school is too strong? A truly insidious tactic. Chen Mobai saw the first dozen or so posts with little flame icons after their titles, and clicked on them with great interest. Upon seeing the words of praise, he couldn't help but smile happily. Then Chan Si and the others saw that Chen Mobai actually posted a thread on the forum. Thank you all for your discussion. I am Chen Mobai, and I will continue to uphold the prestige of the 5th high school of the immortal sect in this battle. Please continue to support our school. Posted by, if I become the Green Emperor in the future. End of this chapter. Chapter 108, The Finals Await You. Unfortunately, the post was quickly buried, because nobody believed him at all. The only 2 replies came from 2 students at the 3rd high school. They were indignant about Kaio Xingwen's defeat, and upon seeing the post, didn't care whether it was true or not. They started criticizing it. Chen Mobai was too lazy to argue with them, and just then Shi Jingjing and Cao Yaling arrived. Most of those who advanced have come. Those who didn't come are probably those who failed and were too embarrassed to come. Mo Simon counted the number of people and found that 6 people were missing. She sat down next to Chen Mobai and quietly shared her opinion. Now that everyone's here, let's start eating. Chen Mobai was a little hungry, and seeing the table full of dishes, he couldn't help but pick up his chopsticks. And Yan Bingxuan too, her performance is at the very end. Wasn't she guaranteed admission to university without taking the exam? Shouldn't she be getting off now? It seems that the representative from the Natural Academy added her name as well, saying that it was a rare opportunity to hone her combat skills and that she couldn't miss it. Upon hearing these words, Chen Mobai could only marvel. A short while later, Yan Bingxuan arrived. She also brought 2 strangers with her. One of them had squinty eyes and smiled at everyone, seemingly very optimistic. The other was a woman with a gloomy aura. She was dressed in black long-sleeved shirts and trousers, which made her limbs appear long and slender with a graceful figure. She also wore a large round hat, which hid half of her face in the shadows. Just seeing her gave me the feeling that she was abnormal, gloomy, and I wanted to stay away from her. Who are these 2? Before Chen Mobai could speak, Mo Simon pulled Yan Bingxuan to her side and asked casually. The one who's laughing is Kong Feiken, and the one who's always frowning is Yang Jing. Before Chen Mobai could react after Yan Bingxuan finished speaking, Mo Simon gasped. Not only her, but all the classmates who were about to have lunch turned to look at the 2 of them. Even Chan Si looked up in slight surprise at the 2 people, who had ordered 2 bowls of noodles at the noodle shop at the entrance of the snack street, and were casually sitting down to eat. I feel like I've heard these 2 names somewhere before. Song Zheng muttered to himself, and Chen Mobai also frowned. They are the 2 people with different spiritual roots from the 2nd high school. Kong Feiken with the wind spiritual root, and Yang Jing with the dark spiritual root, both at the 9th level of Kai refining. Gong Xiangyu from No. 1 High School and Yan Feng from Yuheng Private High School are the only 4 people in our grade who have reached the 9th level of Kai refining. Because they have different spiritual roots, they were already admitted to the Natural Academy when they were in their 1st year of high school. However, they will definitely not let go of the opportunity to enter the 4 major academies. Moreover, when cultivating spells that are compatible with them, people with different spiritual roots can achieve twice the result with half the effort, which may make them even more terrifying than Gong Xiangyu and Yan Feng. Shi Jingjing, as expected of someone with excellent information, immediately found out the details about the two people. So it's a different kind of spiritual root, no wonder. Chen Mobai looked enlightened. In the immortal sects, more than half of those with unique spiritual roots choose to study at the Natural Academy. Yan Bingxuan already possessed the ice spirit root. If it weren't for the entrance exam involving magical combat, Kong Feiken and Yang Jing would very likely have enrolled in the Natural Academy with her. Recently, they have been listening to my lectures together under my great aunt's tutelage. Yan Bingxuan ate and talked at the same time. The person who came from the Natural Academy this time was actually her great aunt, who had reached the 9th level of foundation establishment. It seemed that she planned to sever all worldly ties before forming the Golden Core, so she personally came to take Yan Bingxuan as her disciple. As rare individuals with unique spiritual roots, Kong Feiken and Yang Jing were naturally sought after by the Academy. After arriving in Dangxia City, Yan Qiangji simply invited them over to be taught alongside Yan Bingxuan. If it weren't for the opportunity to enter the 4 major academies through this magical contest, Kong Feiken and Yang Jing would have already agreed to join the Natural Academy long ago, given the kind treatment they received. Let them come over and eat with us. Chan Si ordered 2 large tables of food, but it would be a waste if they couldn't finish it all. So he asked Yan Bingxuan to call Kong Feiken and Yang Jing to come and eat with them. As a result, the former immediately put down his noodles with a smile and sat down to eat the feast as if they were old friends. Yang Jing shook his head and refused. Ignore her, she only likes being alone. The more people around, the more uncomfortable she becomes. As fellow graduates of the 2nd high school, Kong Feiken was very familiar with Yang Jing. When he saw that Chan Si was about to personally invite him, he immediately stood up and stopped her. What kind of unique spiritual root is the dark spiritual root? Although Chen Mobai knew that this type of strange spiritual root existed, it was said that such a strange spiritual root was extremely rare, with very few people achieving success with it. The highest level is a true person who has reached the core formation stage. It seems to be related to cultivating yin spiritual power. In ancient times, such spiritual roots were the most sought-after talents by the evil sects. Shi Jingjing leaned closer and answered his question. The evil path had been extinct for 5,000 years, wiped out completely by the righteous hall of the immortal sect. Chen Mobai inwardly complained and gave up on investigating Yang Jing. When he first saw the 2 people who came with Yan Bingxuan, he instinctively sensed their power. It's safe to say he has a unique spiritual root and is at the 9th level of Kai refining. If he were to face me, he should be able to put up a fight. I originally thought this battle of wits would be quite boring. This was especially true after easily defeating Kaio Xingwen, who was touted as having a great reputation, but was actually quite weak. But after seeing Kong Feiken and Yang Jing, Chen Mobai felt that he might not be able to easily win this battle. After all, he is only at the 7th level of Kai refining, and he is facing an opponent who is 2 levels higher in cultivation. We still need to carefully design the tactics. While eating, Chen Mobai's mind was filled with thoughts of how he should deal with Kong Feiken and Yang Jing if he were to encounter them. Kong Feiken is all right. The wind spirit root is the most common type of spirit root, so he has many references to draw upon. However, there are no posts about dark spiritual roots, even on cultivation aids. Brother Chen, I have long admired your name. Just as Chen Mobai was thinking about how to defeat them, Kong Feiken walked over with a smile and greeted him. Do we know each other? I didn't know you before, but I saw the video of you defeating your opponent cleanly and decisively. To be honest, even if I were in your shoes, I could only manage about the same result. Kong Feiken spoke with great confidence. Chen Mobai looked him up and down, then nodded slightly. Yes, you could also defeat Kaio Xingwen within a minute. Upon hearing his words, Kong Feiken was stunned, and the smile that had been on his face disappeared. Brother Chen, I hope you won't be defeated before you meet me. Kong Feiken finally extended his right hand to Chen Mobai and said these words with a sincere expression. Under the watchful eyes of more than 20 students from the 5th high school, Chen Mobai extended his hand, nodded in agreement, and replied with a single sentence. Okay, I'll be waiting for you in the finals. End of this chapter. Chapter 109, Another Victory. Kong Fiken thought there were very few people as good at showing off as himself, but he never expected that there would be someone even better at showing off in the small city of Danxia. He wanted to say something to turn the tide, but with limited experience, I really couldn't think of anything more pretentious than Chen Mobai's "see you in the finals." Just as he was scratching his head in frustration, Yang Jing finished his noodles and told him to leave. "See you in the finals." In the end, Kong Fiken could only manage to utter this sentence. As soon as the two left, the remaining students from 5th High School looked at Chen Mobai, and Zhu Yuan gave him a thumbs up. He was quite arrogant, but he didn't even have the courage to fight Kong Fiken, a 9th-level Kai refining cultivator with a wind spirit root. "Eat the vegetables, they're getting cold." Chen Mobai, however, didn't feel that his previous statement was pretentious at all. He was simply very confident in himself. At the same time, Gong Xiangyu, who was practicing Kai in a 2nd-tier spiritual vein cave at Danju Academy, also saw a short video sent by his classmate. Upon opening the box, he discovered that one of the two combatants was Chen Mobai, whom he had instructed to be wary of. After reading it, he silently turned off his phone and continued to meditate and practice breathing exercises with his eyes closed. That's the kind of opponent that's interesting. I was worried that Chen Mobai wouldn't meet me and would be eliminated. Now I can finally relax. After lunch, many students, at Chan Si's suggestion, decided to rent the spiritual vein cave dwellings offered by Danju Academy. Chen Mobai originally planned to go home, but after thinking about it, he figured he didn't care about the money. After all, this is an entrance exam that could change my life. Although I am confident, I still need to take it seriously. The next round will be in 7 days, and the round trip will waste almost a day. If you cram at the last minute, you might just master a spell or even break through to a higher realm. Staying here will also allow me to observe my opponents. Although odds information and uploaded battle videos are available online, but some things are more certain when you see them with your own eyes. The duel ended near dusk. After watching a few shows that interested him, Chen Mobai went to rent a cave dwelling and found it to be very cheap. As long as they present proof of participation in the entrance examination, Danju Academy has reserved 200 first-grade high-quality spiritual vein cave dwellings for them, requiring only a symbolic 20 merit points per day. Chen Mobai paid a month's fee. Early the next morning, he arrived at the Summit Arena in Zone B. His next opponent will be decided here soon. However, what Chen Mobai did not expect was that he had already become a celebrity. As soon as he arrived, many people secretly sized him up and pointed at him. Even his two opponents on stage looked at him, one of them even giving him a provocative expression. Ultimately, Shen Jian, a student from the 1st High School, won. Those who dare to provoke others are all people with some strength. Although Shen Jian was only at the 6th level of Kai refining, he had mastered a set of fist techniques. After his opponent used up all his talismans, he easily won this round of combat with close-quarters fighting. This approach is somewhat similar to that of the Heavenly River realm. The cultivators there, lacking spirit stones and cultivation techniques, usually focus on martial arts to increase their combat abilities when practicing Kai cultivation. However, after reaching the later stages of Kai refining, due to the increase in spiritual power, martial arts will gradually be abandoned by cultivators, who will begin to turn to conventional combat methods such as spells and magical artifacts. After 7 days, Chen Mobai discovered that there were quite a few people practicing martial arts. In battles between Kai refining level 6 cultivators, the probability of victory through martial arts reached as high as 80%. There were even 2 individuals who defeated Kai refining level 7 cultivators, gaining immense popularity. However, compared to Chen Mobai's clean and decisive victory over Kaio Xingwen with a simple water control technique, these 2 can only be described as Pyrrhic victories. One of them, although he won, was seriously injured and had to give up to enter the next round. Time quickly moved on to the 2nd round. Chen Mobai was still in the first match, but compared to the first round when only Cao Yaling was in the audience, today almost all the remaining students from the 5th High School who entered the 2nd round came, except for a few who were going to fight at the same time. "Come on!" Squad leader Mo Simon shouted loudly at Chen Mobai. The others, though they didn't shout like her, also raised their hands. "It's such a pity that so many of your friends will have to witness your downfall." Chen Mobai's opponent, Shen Jian, was already waiting on the stage. Upon seeing Chen Mobai, he inexplicably provoked him again. "Referee, can we begin?" In response, Chen Mobai simply turned to the referee of this round and asked him a question. For him to even acknowledge this opponent was a waste of his time. "Damn it, I will definitely make King Nu see your true colors." Just as the referee nodded, blew his whistle, and left the arena, Shen Jian shouted angrily and then threw 2 talismans at Chen Mobai. King Nu. Chen Mobai finally remembered this opponent. It seemed that he was also present at the farewell dinner last time. Judging from his words, he was actually in the same class as King Nu. It's inexplicable. Chen Mobai casually used a wooden shield talisman, but his opponent used a fireball talisman, which only lasted for a second. Oh, wasn't he using the rock spike rune yesterday? Was it because he knew I was using the wooden shield rune that he changed his rune combination this round, specifically targeting the runes I had exposed? Seeing this, Chen Mobai's fighting spirit began to kick in. After the wooden shield talisman shattered, the water sword talisman was released. A stream of clear water condensed into a crystal clear water sword in an instant, which cleaved through 2 fireballs before landing in front of the opponent. However, a golden light shone on the opponent's body, blocking the water sword talisman. Chen Mobai also has this talisman, a mid-grade first-level golden light talisman. I figured out your tactics a long time ago. Surrounded by golden light that kept all the water out of his body, Shen Jian slapped 2 talismans on his legs, instantly tripling his speed. So fast, Chen Mobai was slightly startled as Shen Jian's fists landed right in front of his forehead. Boom, boom! Just as Mo Simon and the others below the arena couldn't help but close their eyes, not wanting to see Chen Mobai's defeat. A sound like water being struck by a boulder rang out. What an exquisite water control technique! Song Zheng couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Mo Simon, Shi Jingjing, and the others who had their eyes closed looked up and saw a layer of clear, bright water, like a barrier, floating in the air in front of Chen Mobai. As it swirled and flowed, it completely dissipated the force of Shen Jian's fists. Water element shield. They have great ideas, but unfortunately their abilities are far inferior to mine. Seeing Shen Jian's fists entangled in his black water and unable to break free, Chen Mobai uttered these words softly, then clenched his right hand and slammed it heavily into his opponent's chin. He originally thought this punch would knock his opponent unconscious, but the physique of someone who had practiced martial arts was unusually strong. The recoil from his jawbone actually made Chen Mobai's hand hurt a little. "Tisk, what a tough nut to crack." Shen Jian roared and broke free from the black water's restraints. Chen Mobai hesitated for a moment, feeling that this person was not worthy of his use of the frost technique, so he placed a binding talisman on his body to trap him again. Then the black water that his opponent had broken free from coiled around his fist like a serpent, and a huge, transparent water fist slammed into his chin again. 2 bloody front teeth were knocked out. End of this chapter. Chapter 110, third round. It was a bit of a stretch. After knocking his opponent unconscious, Chen Mobai rotated his right hand. It had been a long time since he had hit someone so hard, and he felt a little unaccustomed to it. "Referee." He sat down and nudged his opponent who had fallen onto the ring. After confirming that he was unconscious, he shouted at the referee, who had just stepped off the stage less than a minute ago. "The winner is Chen Mobai." The teacher was very decisive and announced it directly. Amidst the surrounding clamor, Chen Mobai stepped off the arena. The students from the 5th high school immediately came over. The feeling of witnessing it in person was completely different from seeing it on video. He had defeated his opponent in just 1 minute, and many people were amazed. Shi Jingjing had already uploaded the battle video she had recorded. At the same time, she secretly placed a large bet on the odds website that Chen Mobai would be able to enter the 4th round. "How are you so amazing?" Song Zheng couldn't help but ask. He knew that Chen Mobai's magical skills might be slightly better than his own, but he never expected that Chen Mobai would be this powerful. He also knows water control techniques, and he has mastered the water shield, which is similar to the water element shield. However, he admitted that neither his timing nor his coordination with talismans was as masterful as Chen Mobai's. The latter had developed a complete system for combining magic and talismans, which was not simply a matter of 1 + 1 = 2, but rather a multiplication of power. This is probably what they mean by practice makes perfect. Chen Mobai thought about it, and felt that he had been sublimated through his battles and trials with demonic beasts on Qingguang Island, although many of his opponents in this battle were at a higher level than him, not to mention the 4 at the 9th level of Kai refining. Even his classmates Zhu Yuan and Shi Jingjing were at the 8th level of Kai refining. But no matter who they were, Chen Mobai had an inexplicable confidence when facing them. This childish, game-like combat with a true warrior like him, tempered by life and death participating, is like a game-changer. Therefore, no matter which opponent he faces, Chen Mobai always exudes a sense of ease and confidence. "It's my turn." At this moment, Cao Yaling spoke up. Her second round was also held in this venue. As someone at the 8th level of Kai refining, she was considered one of the top candidates for direct admission, while her opponent was only at the 6th level of Kai refining. However, the course of the battle surprised all her classmates, and she won with extraordinary difficulty. Her opponent was also a martial artist, and since Cao Yaling wasn't good at fighting magic, she was initially suppressed. However, she ultimately relied on her spiritual eyes to see through her opponent's weakness, and used more spiritual power to wear her opponent down until she was exhausted and won. "Chen Mobai, you absolutely must make it to the 4th round or later." During lunch, Shi Jingjing suddenly said this in a mysterious way. "Huh, you didn't bet on me, did you?" Hearing the subtle meaning behind the music, Chen Mobai glared at her while eating. "Just a little bit. Didn't you say we couldn't bet? I didn't bet on myself, and I bet on you to win." Chen Mobai thought of the more than 3,000 merit points he had in his card, and an idea flashed through his mind. Evening, he made a phone call to Qingnu. "Are you sure you want to buy it this way? It's a way of putting some pressure on myself." "All right then, anyway. This little bit of good deeds isn't even enough to cover the cost of the ingredients for 1 Kai replenishing elixir." Qingnu saw the link Chen Mobai sent her, and the 3,000 merit points he transferred to her, but she didn't know that this was all the latter's current wealth. She obediently bet all of it on Chen Mobai winning the championship. "Odds of 1/100 are not bad." "How much? Wasn't it 1/150 when I checked at noon?" Chen Mobai was stunned when he saw the screenshot Qingnu sent him. He immediately asked Shi Jingjing, an expert, who said that the odds change constantly depending on the betting pool. It was probably because after the video of Chen Mobai's battle in the morning was uploaded, some gamblers were optimistic about him and wanted to take a gamble, betting that he could win the championship, which led to the drop in his odds of winning the championship. Anyway, the house never loses. So that's how it is. I thought the odds were fixed. After listening to the long text explanation sent by Shi Jingjing, Chen Mobai suddenly understood. "Don't place your own bets. If you want to bet, transfer your merit points to me and I'll bet for you." Shi Jingjing's words were different from before, but Chen Mobai didn't trust her at all. "Don't worry, I'll just look. I won't buy anything. On the odds website, I'm most optimistic about those 4 Kai refining stage 9 experts." Yan Feng had the lowest odds at 1/8. Because of his superior family background, the gamblers generally believed that he could produce a powerful talisman that would determine the outcome of the game. Secondly, there's Kong Feiken, thirdly Gong Xiangyu, and finally the gloomy Yang Jing. I felt similarly to Chen Mobai. It just goes to show that the masses have discerning eyes. Aside from these 4, the odds for all others are above 50, meaning most people generally assume the final champion will be one of these 4. However, with more and more duels, many unexpected situations arose. For example, in the first round, 2 Kai refining level 6 cultivators defeated a Kai refining level 7 cultivator, causing many gamblers to suffer huge losses. However, this did not happen again in the second round. With their defenses in place, even those in the late-stage Kai refining realm, like Cao Yaling, who were not skilled in combat, relied entirely on their much stronger spiritual power to achieve victory in the most stable way. All the Kai refining level 6 cultivators were eliminated in this round. This included Mo Simon, but she only felt upset for half a day and calmly accepted the outcome the next morning. She went with Chen Mobai to watch Yan Bingshuan's second round. This match was also extremely thrilling. Her opponent was a Kai refining stage 7 cultivator from the second high school. Yan Bingshuan used up all her talismans and finally managed to defeat her opponent with great difficulty by relying on her powerful ice spirit energy. But Shi Jingjing wasn't so lucky next time. She encountered Hong Gang, a Kai refining level 8 student at Yuhang Private High School who had actually cultivated a Vajra body. Even though Shi Jingjing saw through his weakness, she was ultimately defeated due to the difference in combat ability and the exhaustion of her talismans. After stepping down from the stage, Shi Jingjing's eyes reddened, but with the comfort of her friends, including Cao Yaling, she gradually recovered. Thanks to her sacrifice, Song Zheng, Zhu Yuan, and Shi Yuanqing did not encounter a formidable opponent like Hong Gang on the third day, and all of them easily advanced to the next round. Of course, apart from them, all the other students from 5th High School were eliminated in the second round. At the same time, Chen Mobai's information on the odds website was updated in real time to the 7th level of Kai refining. After 2 battles, even the most clueless person could see his true cultivation level. All 70 students who made it into the third round were at the late stage of Kai refining. The intensity of the battle changed completely in an instant. Moreover, by this point, competition between schools was no longer unavoidable. Zhu Yuan and Cao Yaling faced off. Yan Bingxuan was even more unlucky, as she ended up in line with Yan Feng. Song Zheng faced an opponent named Zhu Luan, who was a fellow student who entered the army in the same year as Zhu Yuan and was the strongest among them, known as the Student King of Soldiers. Shi Yuanqing faced off against a Kai refining level 8 expert named Wu Zhu, who was the second most talented student in the 1st high school after Gong Xiangyu. Chen Mobai was very lucky. He was up against an ordinary Kai refining stage 7 opponent. End of this chapter.